Hello, I'm here. I've been here, sitting here for the last uh, 20 minutes trying to find a stream, which is actually carrying this live. CNBC 18. Where's my glasses? Oh, no. No, no, no. Where's my glasses? Where's my glasses? Damn it. CNBC 18 is showing stuff from this morning. Here, I'll show you what I'm dealing with here. There was such chaos. There was such utter chaos in the way this thing is being shared. Okay, this is CNBC 18. You'll see what I'm talking about. This is Reuters says this live event has ended. They've been saying that for the last, I don't know, hour and a half. To me, I have no reason to assume that Reuters is coming back. This is CNBC 18 right now. That's that same schmo Dan, Officer Dan, or whatever from this morning. They're like on this loop type of thing, which are basically showing testimony which precedes Eric Swalwell's testimony. Okay, so you want me to go to Forbes? I'll check Forbes. Let's just see. Forbes breaking news. They don't tend to do live. Forbes live. Trump, Colorado. This is part one. Okay, I saw this before. This is 2 hours and 14 minutes long. It starts in this morning, and it goes forward. Back, back, and as you'll see, it comes forward here. Come on. This is opening arguments. This is opening arguments. This is opening arguments. Opening arguments. There's opening arguments. These are all we watched this morning. And then we have questions here. This is this guy questioning Officer Daniel, whatever his schmuck. You know, the DC Metro guy. And we go forward here. Forward, 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 forward. Remember all the timestamps here that he was watching? These are all questions we had before. Okay, now move forward to C-SPAN because I pulled up C-SPAN, and this is what's happening on C-SPAN right now. Is this C-SPAN? Yeah, this is C-SPAN. This is C-SPAN. This guy's on the stand here now on C-SPAN. You're correct, Sherry. This is, but I'm missing Swalwell, and they don't let me go back. They don't let me go back more than 40 seconds. So if I do this, I feel like I'm missing Swalwell, and I really, really, really want to see the cross-examination of Swalwell. Can't believe that. Forbes says it's playing live. A bunch of places say they're playing live, and they're playing stuff that's very old. That's why I was getting very, very frustrated. So if I come here and click live, here, watch this, live. That same officer on the stand, okay? That's CNBC TV 18. Then I click this one over here, Reuters. This live event has ended. I'll take out Reuters here, okay? Focus on live, okay? Live, 14. Here we go. Okay, this is CNN. This is CNN News 18. Same officer on the stand here. This is the same idiot on the stand right after they finish their opening arguments. Here's them live. See how it starts here? It's at 2:18. This is only 2 hours and 14 minutes. It's not live. There's no live. This is starting from the very first thing in the morning. This is at like 9 o'clock in the morning when or 8 o'clock when they showed up there this morning. So it says live, but it's not live. It's the only thing I can see is go to C-SPAN. Let me see what this is the same thing again, right? Yeah, this is CNBC TV 18. They're useless. Useless. I checked Rumble. Rumble was showing, here's Rumble. This is me checking Rumble. Nothing. I mean, let's see what this is 5 hours ago. Ooh. Nah, I don't think it's going to make it. Same guy on the stand here. No, this isn't live. Yeah, they're all looping. Forbes Part 2. If you guys have a link, that would be really, really awesome because you guys are all so excited and saying, no, it's definitely live, definitely live. CNN has it. I'll tell you right now. Come back here. CNN. I don't see it here. I tried the Hill. No, had the same thing there. CNN. CNN.com. Let's see if I can directly to their site. I don't see it. cspan.org. They don't let me go back more than 40 seconds. That's the problem. Which is a disaster because I really want to watch Eric Swalwell. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is a little bit earlier in the testimony. What I'm gonna do is this, okay? I can't find anything. I'm gonna watch live now. And this evening I'll try to find the cross-examination of Swalwell. It should be easier to find after everything processes a little bit more. So I'm going to try to cover that this evening on my show. And let's just go forward. I'll try to cover that on my show this evening. Come on, play. We're not going to miss anything. Oh, goody. Oh, good. I don't know who's on the stand. What's happening? Seriously. Not at all sus. So presumably this is another police officer who was there at the Capitol? Why do they think that them wearing protective gear from police? Oh my God, are you serious?
It concerned me because I had not seen that before, and because we don't typically face people who appear to me to be prepared for physical altercations or violence.
Okay. Can you describe any interactions between your unit and members of the mob while you were on the Northwest Terrace lawn? So roughly where my pointer is?
Yes, they were saying things to us as they would continue to say throughout the day. Things like Trump sent us, and things like we don't want to hurt you, but we will. We're getting in that building. And of course, chanting things like stop the steal and a variety of other pro-Trump messages like that.
Were were either you or any of the members of your squad physically assaulted in that area?
Yes, members of my squad there
I'll look and see if I can
started to
find
be
it.
assaulted, pushed, and pepper sprayed by members of the mob.
Could you see could you see members of the mob engage with other law enforcement units in the vicinity?
Yes, I could.
And what did you see?
From where I was posted, I could see that what's marked here is the Northwest Steps, that the mob was advancing up those steps and engaging with other Capitol police officers and assaulting them with what appeared to me to be pieces of construction materials and flagpoles and other things like that that they were striking officers with, and also spraying them with what appeared to me to be pepper spray or chemical irritants.
Okay. How long roughly were you at that position on the Northwest lawn?
I was there for approximately an hour, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, okay. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do. We only saw a couple of minutes of this. I thank you for pulling that up for me, Andy. That was great. This is the start of the afternoon session. Oh, this is so much. I feel so much better. Oh, okay. Phew. Phew. God bless you, Andy. God bless you. Let's go. Let's go. Maybe they have closed captioning too, because that'd be awesome. This is the start of the afternoon session.
Representative Swalwell, can you hear us? I think he's Can you hear us, Representative Swalwell?
Yes, I can.
Great. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Congressman Swalwell. Before we go to the video that halted us for a little bit there, I wanted to circle back and ask you a question about earlier in the afternoon. Do you recall Vice President Pence issuing a statement that day before the certification began?
I do. I recall it being, I believe, like the 1 o'clock hour, like almost right as we got there.
And what was in the statement, if you can recall?
I recall it was written in like a Dear Colleague fashion. He was never a Congress, that makes sense.
One second, sorry. Court reporter asking for a tech pause. Yes, can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I think, yeah, can we start over with that answer? Do you recall what was in the statement, Congressman?
I recall it being printed in the cloakroom and being passed around to members. I remember it being given as a clear column, which is the way that members communicate to each other, and hence, of course, as president of the Senate, is also a member of Congress, so to speak, and he's a former member. And I thought it was interesting that he voted in that format, but it essentially informed us that he would not be stepping outside.
Yeah, I am going to have a session again in 57 minutes.
In the county.
I'm sorry.
It is.
Just one
His audio is
last one.
terrible. His audio is terrible, and there's no closed captioning.
It's okay. Okay. So just in follow up to that, so you testified that he stated that he would not be stepping outside his bounds. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Well known among myself and my colleagues.
Their live tab
Trump,
only lets me go back 40 seconds, and it just circles if I pause it for an hour and come back.
reject the electoral ballots that were sent from the states. And so in the 1 o'clock hour, I do recall being handed from the cloakroom a dear column that Pence had sent, essentially saying that he was not going, that he did not believe he had the authority to do what the former president was asking him to do, and that he would not step outside the ceremony to adding up the electoral ballots.
Okay, great. Okay, let's try with Exhibit P68, please, Mr. Hine.
I know you're pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. You have to have peace.
Going home. Such incitement.
Our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt.
We don't want anybody hurt. That's a dog whistle.
There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are.
Can you guys really not hear them at all? Because I'm seeing a lot of complaints.
So bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Go home and go home in peace.
Do you recall seeing that video on January 6, 2021?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall approximately what time that video came out?
I recall that being in the 3 o'clock hour. I don't know the exact.
What, if anything, changed after Mr. Trump issued this statement?
As I said, we're still in a holding pattern at the evacuation site, being told by the sergeant at arms that the rioters are still.
I know he's very faint, and that's much louder when he's being questioned. The audio issue is he's coming in from Washington D.C. on their whatever sound system, and she's talking into it. And the attorney questioning him is speaking to the mic.
At least when it was sent, when the signal was made, there was still an active attack. I was watching on Twitter, I think in the minutes after the statement, footage of individuals being interviewed or making their own posts that would be posted saying that Trump told them to go home, it was time to go home. So and these were rioters who were getting the Capitol. So I do recall being with my colleagues and seeing that statement had at least an effect on some of the people who were posting my social media.
And at this time, you're still in the secure location, correct? It's P148, Your Honor, which we've
Sucks,
related into evidence, and this is just a different page from that tweet, that compilation of tweets. Do you see the tweet on your screen, Congressman Swalwell? And can you read it?
How is this relevant hours after everyone went home? 6:01 p.m.
Saying these are the things and events that happened in the sacred landslide election victory, so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this.
I guess they're trying to show his intent.
And where were
Arguably.
you when this tweet came out?
I was still with my colleagues in the.
Somehow this displays after the fact that he intended
And so this,
beforehand.
as you testified a moment ago, was about 6 p.m. on January 6th. And what happened, if anything, after this tweet came out?
We were still being updated by the sergeant at arms that reinforcements and law enforcement were on the way to clear the Capitol, that rioters were still in the building. It wasn't safe for us.
Yes, he's under
to go
oath,
back.
Kimmy.
And, about this time, Speaker Pelosi also arrived with other members of leadership and told us that she had been on the phone with the Vice President, Department of Defense, and local governors about getting the National Guard to the Capitol as well, so that we could go back and finish the count.
At some point, did Congress resume counting and certifying the state's electoral votes for the 2016 presidential election?
We were told that the Capitol had been secured and that we were going to be able to head back to the Capitol, and there were likely to be speeches by leaders of the both chambers, and then the debate in the House.
And what did you expect would happen when you returned to the chamber in terms of the debate?
Well, certainly that we would just go back to what we had done in 2017 and 2013, which was to not see a contest of the count, considering violence that occurred. And so when I learned, and my Democratic colleagues learned that there were going to be further challenges, it was unsettling because we believed that that could still invite further violence. And it was also are you kidding me sentiment that after we just went through all of this, we would really go back to trying to challenge the election and believe that the Vice President could do something about it.
About how long had you been gone when you returned to the chamber?
It was about 5 hours that I had been in the evacuation room and then walked through the Cannon Tunnel, which connects the House office buildings to the chamber that my colleagues walked back over to wait for the day.
And what did you observe in the chamber on your way back in?
I went through the back double doors, and again, to reorient you, these were the doors for safety and the president would enter. Those are the doors that on the other side, the chamber side, Capitol Police and some Republican colleagues had been putting furniture against during the attack on the Capitol. And I stepped over glass, and the Capitol Police officer told me to be careful. I was among one of the first groups to go back, so they were still sweeping up a cleaning crew. I was sweeping up glass as you step into the chamber. And then when I stepped into the chamber, I noticed two individuals wearing a blue FBI technician jacket, and they were taking photographs and conducting measurements on the House floor.
And was that unusual?
I've never seen the photographs are not allowed on the House floor, so I don't know why. That was one of the first things I remember thinking, that you're not allowed to take photos of the House floor, but of course it did become a crime scene. But yes, it was unusual.
How were other members reacting, in your view?
They could be kept from re-election.
The debate would continue, and we were I was unclear, and the people I spoke to were unclear.
Hold on just one second, Congressman. There's a siren coming by the courtroom.
Well, find your microphone, Eric.
You can start again.
I was anxious because I feared that we were going to continue to challenge, if Republicans were going to continue to challenge the outcome, that the mob
Right.
could return, and that the scene on the floor could also become combustible among the members.
Did you hear any meaningful speeches?
Well, one contentious moment was during the challenge of the Pennsylvania results, and I was seated directly behind Connor Lamb, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, as he defended the count in Pennsylvania. And Connor began his remarks essentially saying, before the riot, he prepared remarks that was going to show deference and respect to the Republican challenges, but considering that the riot occurred and we're still doing this, they're not worthy of his respect. And then a Republican from Maryland, Andy Harris, started shouting down Connor, and then some of my Democratic colleagues beelined over to Andy Harris, who was behind me, and told him to let Connor finish. I jumped up and went over, and I saw that Andy Harris and Democrat Colin Allred, a former NFL player from Texas, were essentially in an argument. And I recall yelling at Andy. You don't want to do that, Andy. You use to tackle people for a living. Andy, you don't want to do that. Unfortunately, it stopped.
Did Congress ultimately finish the counting and certifying of the state's electoral votes for the 2016 presidential election that evening?
We did, and it was in the 3 o'clock a.m. hour the next day, January 2nd.
And what was the very last act of the night?
It was Vice President Pence presiding the joint session, receiving the tally from the tellers and declaring that Joseph R. Biden was the winner and would be inaugurated on January 20th.
What time did you get home that night?
At home, just after 4 a.m.
And what happened when you returned home?
I was greeted by my wife. There was a lot of late nights in Capitol because the first time she ever waited up for me and gave her a big hug, and then went up and did something I also would never do with little children, which is to go into the room when they're sleeping, and it just gave both of them.
All right. In a desperate search to try and find better audio, I think that this is part 2 and hopefully clearer. So we might be back a few minutes earlier, but I really want to be able to hear what the hell he's saying.
In your experience, what is the process for counting and certification of electoral votes on January 6th?
Largely ceremonial.
This is no better.
Convenes in what's called a joint session, meaning the House and the Senate are in the Congress. The Vice President of the United States, the President of the Senate, presides over the count.
I don't see this being any better.
Each
Is this
state
any better?
automatically has their votes called. If there's an objection, you need somebody to meet your objection from the other chamber. So, for example, if a House member objects, a senator would also have to object, and then both.
And this was
bodies,
earlier.
allow
This was
us
all much
in the
earlier.
cloakroom, look at each other, honestly.
And
This is all from earlier.
I'm going to now show,
I also recall, sorry,
Nope.
Ruben
We'll figure something out.
This was all
I
from
can also-
earlier. I'm going back to this thing.
kisses on the forehead.
I apologize for the.
after January
confusion of
6th,
this.
2021,
That was the earlier.
what
That's before
conclusion, if
lunch.
any, did you come to as to what
This is after
or
lunch.
who caused or instigated the attack on the Capitol?
Conclusions are not relevant, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Oh, finally.
In the aftermath of the attack, did Congress consider any action against Donald Trump for his role in the attack?
As we were in the evacuation room, colleagues of mine in the judiciary, David Cicilline, Ted Lieu, and Joe Niggers were already thinking about what we would have to do legislatively to make sure that the inauguration could take place if we did finish the count. And so within days, Speaker Pelosi, working with them, would bring forth articles of impeachment, and that would be voted on, or debated and voted on 1 week later on January 13th.
How did you vote on the impeachment?
I voted with my Democratic colleagues and 10 other Republican colleagues to impeach on the count of insurrection.
And what role did you have, if any, in those proceedings, those impeachment proceedings?
A few hours before the vote, Speaker Pelosi called me and asked me if I would serve as an impeachment manager on the impeachment team in the Senate. And I accepted it and would be a part of the 9-person impeachment manager team led by lead manager Jane Raskin.
And you testified a moment ago that there were Democrats and Republicans that voted in favor of the impeachment. Did that vote result in an impeachment of the president by the House?
Yes, on January 13th.
Yeah, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and 8 other idiots who all lost their jobs.
By the House.
Was there a trial in the Senate?
There was, yes.
And what was the result of that trial?
In the Senate, the president, 50 Democrats and 7 Republicans
Oh my God.
voted that the president had indeed committed insurrection, although that would be 10 votes short.
In other words, found not guilty.
For removal.
Did any Republican senators who voted against conviction publicly reveal reasons for their vote?
None of this
Your
is
Honor, I'll
relevant.
try to tie it together here with another question.
Overruled.
It's also
Do you want me
hearsay.
to repeat the question,
So
Congressman?
I
Okay.
Shortly after the Senate proceedings, Leader McConnell went to the floor.
This is
and said
hearsay.
his vote to acquit did not mean that Donald Trump would escape accountability at all, and that there were other legal means, civilly and criminally, that were holding him accountable.
As a member of the House of Representatives, Congressman Swalwell, are you required to take
This
an
is
oath of
cheap,
office?
Viva. I'll send you a link,
If
brother.
elected on January 3rd.
And does that include an oath to the Constitution?
Yes, it does.
And what do you understand that oath to the Constitution to mean?
That oath predominates my loyalty to anything else I ever do need to defend and protect.
No further questions.
Cross.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Representative Swalwell.
Good afternoon, Council.
Am I correct that you weren't injured on January 6th?
I was not, no, not physically.
Yet you are the plaintiff in a personal injury lawsuit that you brought against Donald Trump in the United States District Court for the
Good.
District of Columbia. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you're seeking damages in that lawsuit?
unstated, but yes, meaning no dollar amount.
And as a lawyer, you understand that if this proceeding against President Trump is successful, that would improve your chances of success in that lawsuit,
Good opening.
correct?
Council, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah. You're a lawyer, are you not?
Yes,
And you understand that if this case goes against President Trump, that likely increases your probability of success in your personal injury lawsuit against him, right?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Relevance,
Goes to
credibility.
bias, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I'll leave it to the legal experts as to what this means for the second lawsuit. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. You're an attorney. I don't know. He's such a bad liar. I have no idea. This might affect my lawsuits? Really? that hurts his credibility
Is it your
even
view,
more,
sir,
that answer.
That President Trump has some, or had some lesser quantum of First Amendment rights than every other American on January 6th?
No, it's not right.
So he enjoyed the full, as far as you're concerned, he had every right that every other American had to speak with full First Amendment protections on that date.
In accordance with the law, yes.
Every right that every other American had to speak with full protections on that date.
Oh, hi.
He pointed out that during his January 6th speech, he used the phrase fight and fight like hell, correct?
Yes,
And you would acknowledge that that is in fact common, or not, certainly not uncommon discourse in political circles during speeches, right?
He'll play a montage of Maxine Waters'
Yeah, politicians
AOC.
often say fight like hell, or words like that, right?
Yeah.
When they give speeches.
yes, sir.
You've done it yourself, right?
Uh-huh.
Many of your Democratic colleagues do that too, right?
That's right. That's right.
And when you do it, you're not calling for physical violence, right?
I'm not.
And you're not saying that your Democratic colleagues are calling for physical violence, right?
In my experience, that's not how I interpret it. No.
And you judge that by the words that are said, right?
And the surroundings where they are, but yes.
And who says them?
Of course. If I say it's totally innocent, if any Republican says it, especially
to-
Orange Bad Man.
I only got 15
you,
minutes, Joe, but
All right.
this is painful to watch.
1066
I'm loving
which
the
is
cross.
was designated as a cross exhibit.
I couldn't tell the first woman. I thought that was cross because it was going so badly. How does it go badly for him in chief?
Did you have an objection to that?
No.
Could you put up exhibit 1066, please?
What was the last question, Joe, that they asked him in
Yes,
chief, where he
there's
said,
no objection. Can it be admitted, Your Honor?
1066 is admitted.
And sir, I will represent to you that this is a collection of tweets from your Twitter account.
"Ooh,
And
oh, he's drinking water. He's already got." He's gonna fart. He's gonna fart. It's the only way to distract.
After this, so I ask you to bear with us.
Get up.
There's a whole bunch of your stupidity that you sent out on Twitter.
Are they going to pull up the one where he threatened to use nukes against the gun owners of California? Paraphrasing what he said, people.
Obviously.
Okay, let's see this. They bring up the fact that he voted to impeach.
Why don't we look at page 16 first?
They bring up the fight stuff.
So if you put page
I'll
16
make
up.
this a little bigger for you all to see better.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, the chief asked him how he voted on the impeachment,
Recognize that as a,
highlighting the acquittal on the
By
impeachment.
Twitter account dated May 2nd, 2022. Okay. You think they'll stop with a woman's right to choose? You haven't been paying attention. We have to fight like our lives depend on it, because clearly they do. You
This
wrote
is-
that, right?
Oh,
And you were not calling for any sort of physical fight, correct?
oh no, he was.
You were not advocating violence.
He was.
And if you look at the next page, please.
This is great.
Okay, and
Always
this
great
is
to
another
hang a
tweet from
witness
your
on his own
verified
words.
account. Is that right? Okay. And you wrote, this is just the beginning. They won't stop. Fight like your lives depend on it, because they do.
That sounds like violence, actually.
It says hashtag vote political, yes.
Oh.
And again, you were not calling for physical violence. That was a metaphorical fight, right?
No, he was dog whistling for violence, actually.
I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on that.
C-SPAN's audio is
There was
terrible.
one other
They're all terrible, though, even this morning.
thing to ask you about.
Well, I don't feel so bad talking over this. Being tongue in cheek, this is good. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
There you go.
Is this
Fight.
a tweet from your verified Twitter account dated February 4th, 2022?
Looks like that.
You're right there.
Cheney and Kinzinger may not
Party, but
be
in
in
this
the
fight,
party.
we're all on the same side. Do you see that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what fight were you referring to here?
I had to see the key above it to have context, but I'm assuming based on the date that it reversed the January 6th investigation, but
With- But when you said the January 6th investigation, you mean the January 6th Select Committee? Okay, and that was because Representatives Cheney and Kinzinger were the two Republican members who Speaker Pelosi had appointed to that committee? Is that
Excuse
right?
me.
And you considered them to be on your side of that fight, correct?
I guess
Oh, for crying out loud.
All right, we'll put that exhibit aside.
I don't think they appreciate what they did with the impeachment
Earlier
question.
today, council showed you some tweets by
I can pause it.
President Trump.
How so?
Because by highlighting the fact that A, he voted on the impeachment, and B, the impeachment for the January 6th stuff was an acquittal, they're illustrating how this is nothing but a second kick at the can to try to get him disqualified for that for which he was acquitted on impeachment, the January 6th stuff.
Yeah, good point.
So-
Good point.
You remember that? Did council pick which tweets they were going to show you, or did you discuss with them which tweets you wanted to testify about?
those are my comments.
Consult.
So
I'm sorry,
Attorney
someone
client,
else.
is he your
I
client?
have a question and answer.
I think he said that they were chosen by council, Your Honor. So one that the council focused on, if you would put up the 2:24 p.m. So this is exhibit 148, page 83 in that first one. Do you remember discussing this one from 2:24 p.m.?
And this is the key one that they're trying to hang him on as being insurrection.
And then if you go to the next page, the second tweet on that page. And you remember discussing the second tweet at 6:01 from 6:01 p.m.?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Now let's look at the two that council decided to skip that were right in between those two. Okay. Let's look first at the tweet from 15 minutes after the first one you discussed at 2:24 p.m. Page 83, second tweet on the page.
I see it.
Okay. And at 2:38 p.m., 15 minutes or so after the tweet that you discussed about Vice President Pence, you see that President Trump wrote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." Do you see that?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember reading that on January 6th?
Well, I didn't read that.
I do.
What did you understand that tweet to mean?
That we needed it 10 exit before he said it, before the law had come. But he, I imagine, had seen the the violence committed against the officers and believed that he had the power because he sent them there to stop them from abusing them.
That's just, and if he didn't say anything, that means he doesn't have the power. That means he's trying. That means he's wielding his power negatively. But since he does try to stop them, that means it's a display of his authority and power. This is so stupid. This trial is such a sham.
No, it's a sham. The impeachment is high crimes, other high crimes and misdemeanors, right? Is the terminology?
It's impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors. Yeah.
So that's what,
Treason. It's treason, bribery, high crimes and misdemeanors.
all right, strike that. So whether he had the power or not, certainly he's telling people to support our Capitol Police and law enforcement and stay peaceful, right?
In that too, yes.
Yeah. And he told them that in his speech, right? He told them to proceed peaceably and patriotically to the Capitol, right?
You have to play that for me. I know.
Okay, well.
I don't remember
the
that.
judges heard it, so I'm not going to take the time to replay that now. Let's look at the next tweet that he sent at 3:13 p.m. If you put that up, please. You see that tweet? He says, "I'm asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence!" Exclamation mark. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you! Exclamation mark. You see that?
I just heard that.
Okay. Do you remember reading that on January 6th?
I do, yes.
Okay. What did you understand that to mean on January 6th, sir?
Insurrection, obviously. So.
A lot of violence had taken place. At that time, I was just arriving with a gas mask in my hand to the evacuation room, and the president is asking the violent rioters to stop attacking the police.
Boom. The president is asking the violent rioters. He's focusing on the violent rioters, but the violent rioters. He's asking the violent rioters to stop. How is he responsible for this insurrection? 15 minutes after the incriminating thing is when they're in the middle of already in the Capitol. 15 minutes in the middle, and then he sends a follow-up tweet 15 minutes afterwards saying, "Respect our police officers, remain peaceful." And yeah, no, this is just unbelievable.
Okay. So that's a couple of posts between the two posts that you had previously discussed where the president is asking people to stop attacking and be peaceful, right?
In these tweets, yes.
In those tweets. And we looked at a short video of about 1 minute where he asked people to do exactly the same thing, right? To be peaceful.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. And that came
No, but that was after the fact.
presumably around or slightly after that 3:13 p.m. tweet, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Oh, we got to go? Okay, 2 minutes.
I'm done with that. Thank you.
Oh, man.
I'm liking this cross, but I think this should take 3 hours, and apparently it takes like under 40 minutes because there's so many things you can ask him about aside from his whole fight thing.
I don't have any further questions for you, sir. Thank you very much.
See, I like what he did. I just wish there was more. Meaning, I would have asked him. You know, he said during his testimony that the vice president has an administrative function, kind of like a game show host, opening up like the ballots there. And it's like, well, if that's all the power that that Pence didn't have any opportunity to do anything other than that, I would have asked him if that's all the power that he had. Why did you, as part of Congress, pass a law that specified that after January 6th?
I would have asked him if having sex with a Chinese prostitute qualifies as insurrection, but that would have been too argumentative. Or that would have been inciting the erection for certain, to quote Chuck Schumer.
Inciting so I don't know how much longer you have, but I'm going to go further.
Go. I'm going to have to duck out in like 3 minutes to take my kids.
So why don't you tell me, what are your thoughts here before I go any further?
Okay. It's the most outrageous thing to watch in real time. It's an absolute joke. The opening statements where the lawyer there says using the word peaceful, is an indication of how insurrection-y his speech was, because if it were peaceful, you wouldn't have to use the word peaceful. These are idiot partisan hacks arguing from a conclusion, not towards one. And had he not said peaceful, it would have been more evidence. The fact that he uses peaceful is evidence. And the fact that what did the other guy in opening says? He says like not doing something, like not preventing something, is the exact
Engagement.
opposite. Yeah,
Of engaging.
engaging in insurrection. It's a joke. The only question is,
and the reason he chose that language is because our Section 3 of the 14th Amendment specifically says that
engaging
it's
in insurrection.
Yes,
But
engaging in
he was
insurrection.
acquitted. He was acquitted on those charges. It's not even as though he was convicted by Congress, by the Senate. And it's not even as though he's been convicted on a state charge for what he did for what he's alleged to have. It's total. Can I swear? I can't. The kids horse shit. It's a big steaming pile of horse crap, and it's a joke to watch. It's frustrating. I might be live streaming it tomorrow, but I don't think I'll be able to be quiet over this crap. That and their audio today has sucked rubbish.
Yeah, it has.
But man, anyways, I'm gonna listen to you while I go drive. So keep
Later,
it up. Keep
later,
on
brother.
plugging away.
Thank you for stopping by.
Pleasure. Thank you. See you soon.
Ciao. And that's my good buddy there. All right, Viva Fry. So I'm also going to be streaming this for like the next 5 days. So I urge you to make sure you stick around as express my venom.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly, Congressman Swalwell, in colloquy with counsel just a moment ago, he asked you about 2 other tweets that Mr. Trump sent. In either of those tweets, did Mr. Trump ask people to go home?
No.
And did he ask people to leave the Capitol?
So
Thank you.
they have a right to protest.
Congressman Swalwell, I think you're done. Thank you.
Why would he say go home?
Thank you, Your Honor.
That, and you know what, and this is what the entire issue is with January 6th. Those of you who are, this is what the entire issue is. It is trying to criminalize what was mostly a peaceful gathering. You know, we heard that whole summer, all we heard about is like 95% peaceful. Every time there was some crazy riot happening at a BLM thing, 95% peaceful. And it was the exact same thing here too. It was 95% peaceful. But because of the numbers of people that are there, and nobody dies at this. No one died at this, at least at the hands of the quote unquote rioters. The only ones who died was actual rioters. But it's trying to basically say, if you stand against us, we are not going to allow you follow your First Amendment rights. Now, and I stress this over and over again, they should not have gone into the building. They shouldn't have. But the fact that they went in there doesn't all of a sudden make it insurrection. Or that he's trying to incite insurrection. Or he's looking to get them to hang Mike Pence, like someone was saying earlier. I mean, the whole thing is so ridiculous that when he says peacefully, march peacefully. That's his dog whistle for how he's saying, when I say that word, I don't really mean it. When I say fight, that's when I really mean it. When I say peacefully, that's when I don't mean it. This is just so ludicrous that this is actually a trial. This is a bigger indictment of our justice system that this was not dismissed on legal grounds than it is of Donald Trump. You missed the whole cross-examination of Swalwell. And you won the motion to suppress and dismissal charges. Oh, I'm going to give you one of these for that. Great job, Little Rock. Hey, to Trump's team. Four people were charged. Out of the thousands who were there, 4 were charged with having weapons at the Capitol that day.
I'm sorry.
They were armed.
Your Honor, Mario Nicholas on behalf of the petitioners.
Out of
And
thousands.
we are going to call Officer Winston Pinjon as our next witness.
Yes, you said it's pronounced Pinjon.
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 Officer Pinjon.
Hold on a second. Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear under the penalty of law that the testimony you will give before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. So, please sit down, just make sure to speak into the microphone, okay? You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Officer Penjon. Would you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Winston Pinchon, WINSTON, PINGEON.
Officer Penjon, where did you go to college?
I went to American University in Washington, D.C.
And what degree did you receive there?
I received a bachelor's in justice and law, which is a criminal justice degree,
When did you receive that degree?
in May of 2016.
Where did you go to work after you graduated from American University?
I joined the United States Capitol Police as a police officer,
And roughly when was that?
June of 2016.
Are you still currently employed with the USCP?
I have not, no.
When did you leave the USCP?
I left the department in October of 2021.
During the course of your career with USCP, what units were you assigned to?
I was primarily assigned to the House Division, but I also served on a variety of other collateral assignments, the Ceremonial Unit or Honor Guard, the Special Operations Division, and the Civil Disturbance Unit.
Well, the audio was messed up, so it's hard to know for sure. There was a lot of times when it got very staticky, and people were speculating.
Can you describe for the court what the Civil Disturbance Unit is?
Yes, the Civil Disturbance Unit is effectively the riot team for the Capitol Police.
Prior to January 6th, 2021, were you ever deployed as a part of the CDU?
Yes, I was multiple times.
Can you describe just briefly some of your deployments prior to January 6th?
Yes, for large-scale protests or events that the numerous people coming to the Capitol, we were deployed, sometimes in Forag or sometimes with our gear just on standby. But it was commonplace for CDU to be deployed for a variety of events and groups that would come and protest or demonstrate around the Capitol.
Can you provide the court with some examples of those other events?
Yes, a few in the summer of 2020 of Black Lives Matter protests, as well as two different ones in November and December of 2020 in protesting the results of the election.
During those prior events, did you witness any violence at those events?
Nothing large scale, no, but there were times where we would have to arrest people, but no major violence, no.
And did you ever feel when you were serving in the CDU at those prior events that your unit would be overrun?
No,
Were your lines ever broken in those prior events?
no,
Did you ever fear for your life during any of those prior events?
no.
Officer Pinjon, I want to take you to January 6th,
What's he
2021.
going to say?
Were you on duty that day?
Yes, I was.
When did you
Getting
report
killed?
for duty
I'm
on
losing
January 6th?
badly.
I reported
What's
at
he gonna say?
approximately 8 or 9 a.m. that morning.
And were you assigned to your regular duty or to a separate unit?
I was assigned to CDU that morning. My normal assignment at that time was 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., so I was working overtime early with CDU.
What is your understanding of why that changed?
I understood that to be the case because of what Congress was doing that day, of certifying the results of the election, as well as the former president was hosting a rally or event near the White House.
How many officers were in your CDU squad that day?
In my squad, there were approximately 25 or 30 of us.
Okay. Officer Pinjon, I'm going to ask you just a couple questions about, I want to bring up what's previously been marked as Exhibit P-163, Your Honor. Oh, sorry. Got the wrong one.
Now, if they show
Officer Pinjon, as a
scenes from that
USCP
day,
officer,
violent
are you
scenes from that
familiar with the
day,
layout of the U.S.
I'm
Capitol
going to need to
itself?
block it because of
Yes, I am.
YouTube.
And how are you familiar with the layout of the Capitol?
I'm familiar with it because I spent 5 years there and worked at numerous events, and so I spent a significant amount of time in the Capitol and around the Capitol grounds over my career there.
Okay. And are you familiar with the Capitol grounds as well?
Yes, very much so.
So I brought up what is Plaintiff's Exhibit 163, and I'd like you to take a look at it. Have you reviewed this exhibit before?
Yes, I have.
Would you say that's a fair and accurate representation of the Capitol grounds and one level of the U.S. Capitol?
Yes, it is.
Would you say that this would help you to explain your testimony to the court?
Yes, it would.
Your Honor, I'd like to, at this time, move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 163 as a demonstrative exhibit.
Your Honor, can I get some clarification? Is this a general representation of Capitol grounds, or is it a representation of some specific time? Because there are all sorts of markings and.
Your Honor, let me,
There are also some
I can-
markings and annotations on this.
Okay, I don't think either one of those really go to admissibility, so I'm going to admit the exhibit and you can ask questions about what they are and certainly ask them cross-examination.
I'll tell you what, I'll try to actually lay some foundation for that, Your Honor. Officer Penjon, were you around the Capitol and the Capitol grounds prior to January 6th and in the weeks leading up to that?
I was on leave the week of Christmas of 2020, but so I believe my first day back on duty was that Monday, January 4th, I think.
Okay. And so when you were you familiar with some of the additional things that barricades and things that were placed there prior to the inauguration?
Yes,
And does this exhibit, does it accurately and fairly represent some of those additional structures that were placed there?
yes, it does.
Thank you, Officer Pinjon. Okay, I'd like to go to go back to January 6th and talk to you a little bit about that. Where did your group, your squad ultimately stage from?
We had our roll call in the Longworth House office building, but we ultimately staged in what we call the truck tunnel along New Jersey Avenue and Constitution Avenue in the northwest. So,
Okay, so I'm gonna use my mouse here,
yes.
and if you can direct me towards where you were talking about.
So approximately this area right here, in New Jersey Avenue.
What is that?
Well, so where your cursor is now is where we had roll call initially, and opposite from that on the map, about there, is where we staged and waited for the orders.
Okay, so you were waiting for further orders. What time was this roughly that you were staged over there?
That was approximately 11 a.m. or so.
Were you told to do anything? How were you to receive further orders?
Yes, my lieutenant, who was my commander that day, told us to put our anchor on around that time.
Okay. Do you remember getting a call on the radio later that day?
Yes, I do.
And what was that call? What did you hear in that call?
In that call, I heard that one of our outer perimeter lines had been breached and that the officers there had been overrun. And I remember distinctly hearing the need for help in the officer's voice. As a police officer, you know when something's not right. You can hear it in people's voices on the radio. And that was one of those times.
And why were they calling for the CDU at that point?
They needed additional officers to respond. And because we were with the CDU and more specifically the CDU Hard Squad in Fort Gear, they needed us to go assist to back them up.
Can you describe the gear you put on that day?
Yes, the CDU gear is similar to hockey or football pads of chest protector over my bulletproof vest, arm protectors, groin protector, thigh protectors, shin pads, as well as additional gear on my belt like my PR-24 baton, my gas mask, and we had protective sunglasses too in case of lasers being pointed at us.
Okay. Were you wearing a body camera at that time?
No, I was not. I was never issued a body camera, and no Capitol Police officer at that time wore body cameras.
All right. You said that you had a call from, where was it you said you received a call from?
The call came from the near Peace Circle where Pennsylvania Avenue meets the Capitol.
I'd like you to take a look at the map again. And is this roughly where you're talking about you received the call from?
Yes.
And what was going on in the Peace Circle at that time, as you understood it?
I'm just going to pause and tell you why all of this is so ridiculous. Okay, and here's the real point. Article 14, Section 3. I mean, this is yet another point as to why all this testimony is ridiculous. Okay, Article 4, Section 3 is basically designed to make someone ineligible to be president if they engaged in insurrection. The charge here is that he incited insurrection. That incitement, which fortunately did not cause the deaths of any police officers, and the only one who died was actually someone who was purportedly incited. But more importantly than that, the repercussions are not what determine whether the speech itself was unlawful. The speech is either lawful or it is unlawful. So if he's trying to incite, what happened that day, someone breaching here, coming in there, whatever, what you need to basically determine is his statement at the time that he's making it something that is likely, and you can show that there's an intent for him to cause imminent lawlessness. Now, let's say he has that intent and he says something which should cause imminent lawlessness, but some hand of God comes down and stands in the way of everyone so that no one actually performs anything lawless. By definition, his speech is still something that's illegal. He's trying to incite it. It got stopped for one reason or another. It's the speech, which is what we need to assess, not the repercussion. So, and if he says something that is not leading to it, and these people basically take it, and these people just run in there and literally butchered every person in Congress, God forbid, that would not make his speech incitement. So the repercussions that happen inside the Capitol are not at all relevant to a determination as to whether or not he should be eligible to serve. It's a very simple thing. Looking at his speech, is this something that makes sense that's inciting someone towards lawlessness? His entire speech, in context, at the time, when he's making that statement, is it something that is inciting lawlessness? Then, if you come to a conclusion that it is, then you need to come to a legal conclusion that that's considered part of engaging in insurrection. And then you need to say that engaging in insurrection is something that because that's what Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says. And then you need to say that the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment applies to someone running for the President of the United States, even though the President and Vice President are very clearly carved out of it, because it says that the people who will be held to not be eligible are someone who's running for Senator, House, elector of a president, or elector of a vice president. And they specifically reference president and vice president, but not as they're the ones who are ineligible, but an elector thereof. So you have to say basically that incitement is engagement, and this section applies Section 14 after you come to a conclusion that he incited irrespective of any result that comes from his speech, because that's what incitement is. Incitement is that moment is where you commit the crime. It doesn't become a crime because people die, and doesn't not become a crime if no one dies. There's nothing to do with that. So that's where everyone gets so confused about this, and it's very frustrating. Like, why do I need to hear about everything that happened? And the question is, what happens? What did he say? And what is the situation at the moment that he's saying it? Boom, end of story. That's it. That's it. Not, someone screamed a mean thing at a Metro cop, or something that says, it shows that he was prepared. How is that relevant to looking to examining the focus here from a legal perspective as to exactly what happened? It's completely irrelevant. And this judge is just letting this whole stupid sham thing happen because either she's incompetent or she's tilted. But that's the only nothing from a legal perspective. None of this makes sense as far as being like relevant testimony. I'm going to give you I'm going to call you out, Wims. Thank you for legally speak makes the mess somewhat digestible. And thank you for that. I'm going to give you one of those. Charity there. I appreciate that. Anyway, let's get back to our show.
The call for help was that the line had been breached and that people had pushed past those officers and were making their way towards the Capitol.
In response to that call, what did your squad do?
We responded.
I specifically said that. I said it's carved out.
As I understand it, is this roughly where you were at, where my pointer is?
Elector of a president,
Yes,
not the president.
And what was your path to respond?
So we were on a Capitol Police bus.
You're correct.
The bus took
You
us
just
through
misheard what I said.
North Barricade, which is where the Delaware Avenue meets Constitution Avenue. We went straight south from there and then curved along down the Northwest Drive to approximately where it says the Summer House is where we stopped.
Is that roughly here?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. When you stopped at that and what's in that Summer House area? Can you describe it a little bit for the court?
Yes, it's there's some trees and it's I don't know the full history of it, but it's a historic old function, and the white lines there are pedestrian walkways. So it's an area where tourists or people, neighbors would often jog or bike or walk their dog by.
Okay. What did you see when you got out there near the summer house?
From there, I could see that already individuals of the crowd had made their way up closer to the lower west terrace of the Capitol.
I see you're pointing at the map, so I just want to, for the court circle. So you said originally the call came from the Peace Circle because there was barricaded. You said that where were they making their way up to?
So they continued, I guess that's southeast, along what we call the Pennsylvania Avenue Walkway, because the road ends at Peace Circle, but that white area where your house is, that's the walkway, and people have made their way up that.
And what's at the end of that walkway?
The stairs, well, there's stairs, and at that time there were construction parts of the inauguration stage.
So how long between when you received the call and when you got there and saw people making already to the stage? How long was that?
Oh, approximately 5 minutes or less even.
Okay. How would you describe the crowd that you saw when you got out?
From there, I could see that they were dressed in numerous Trump apparel, red hats, and carrying flags, and that they were advancing quickly, and that the crowd was already growing larger just by the minute.
Okay. When you got out, did you put on any additional gear at that point?
Yes, I did.
What did you put on? What additional gear?
I put on the gas mask.
Had you ever worn your gas mask in the line of duty before?
No, only in the environment.
And why were you told to put on a gas mask on this day?
There were calls that potentially gas either was already deployed or was soon to be deployed. So the decision was made that we would do that in order to be best prepared.
Okay. So I want to go back. You were here and you got out. So is this roughly where you were putting on your gas mask?
Yes.
Where did you go from there?
From there, we marched, we formed up and marched as best we could to the steps and ended up in the area here of sort of northwest lawn along that walkway. And we ended up right in that grass area right where your mouse is now.
Tell you what, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, Officer Pinjon, so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So you said right about here on the map?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As you were arriving there, did you see anyone in medical distress?
Yes, I did.
And what did you see?
I saw an individual.
This is really relevant to what Trump said.
And somebody performed CPR on that person.
How did the crowd react to the first responders providing medical care?
Well, it was mixed, but I was going to see another person in need of medical care where at that point, mob had turned hostile and was assaulting officers that were trying to go and help the second person in distress.
Officer Pinjon, so from this position where my cursor is currently at, from where your squad is deployed, could you see beyond the immediate area around you?
Yes, I could.
And why could you see beyond the immediate area?
Primarily because of the elevation of Capitol Hill that I could see, and just the direction of how we were sort of lined up closely to Pennsylvania Avenue, that I could see down Pennsylvania Avenue, looking towards downtown DC.
So would that be looking out over the Peace Circle?
Yes, facing west.
And how far beyond that could you see?
I could probably see 10 or so blocks until the road shifts.
And what did you see when you looked in that direction?
When I looked down there, I could see that there appeared to be thousands of people coming towards the Capitol
And they were coming towards the Capitol along what route?
along Pennsylvania Avenue.
Did you notice anything unusual about what members of the mob were wearing while you were on the Northwest lawn?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
Objection asked and
That
answered.
was the equipment that some of them were wearing, to include things like helmets, goggles,
we
what
covered
appears
this.
to be body armor, paramilitary style gear and equipment that they were wearing.
As a USCP officer, did that concern you?
Yes, it did.
And why did that concern you?
It concerned me because I had not seen that before, and
I didn't even know what it was.
because we don't typically face people who appear to me to be prepared for physical altercations or violence.
Okay. Can you describe any interactions between your unit and members of the mob while you were on the Northwest Terrace lawn, so roughly where my pointer is?
Yes, they were saying things to us as they would.
Can you tell us how
continue
many
to say
members were in
throughout the
Antifa
day,
and changed from black shirts to red on the
things
lawn
like
there?
Trump sent us, and things like, we don't want to hurt you, but we will. We were getting in that building. And of course, chanting things like stop the steal, and a variety of other pro-Trump messages like that.
Were were either you or any of the members of your squad physically assaulted in that area?
Yes, members of my squad there started to be assaulted, pushed, and pepper sprayed by members of the mob.
Could you see could you see members of the mob engage with other law enforcement units in the vicinity?
Yes, I could.
And what did you see?
From where I was posted, I could see that what's marked here is the northwest steps, that the mob was advancing up those steps and engaging with other Capitol Police officers and assaulting them with what appeared to me to be pieces of construction materials and flagpoles and other things like that they were striking officers with, and also striking them with what appeared to me to be pepper spray chemical irritants.
How long roughly were you at that position on the northwest lawn?
I was there for approximately an hour, maybe a little bit more.
All right, so I'm going to try refreshing this. We'll see what happens. If I just refresh, I'm at 56, 57. I knew I was going to have this problem here. Hit watch from the beginning. What is watch from the beginning? Now I'm going to jump to 56, 57.
Pieces of construction materials and flagpoles and other things like that they were striking officers with, and also spraying them with what appeared to me to be pepper spray irritants.
How long roughly were you at that position on the northwest lawn?
I was there for approximately an hour, maybe a little bit more.
And in that time, what change in size or nature of the mob did you observe?
Well, the size of it, like I said, continued to grow larger, and they seemingly became more emboldened by that size. That it was apparent to me we were very outnumbered.
Do you remember your attackers saying or doing anything that would have indicated what they were trying to do?
Relevance.
Yes.
And what was that?
Well, like I said, some of them told me that they were there to break inside and to get into the U.S. Capitol.
Did any of them threaten you?
Yes, they did.
And how did they threaten you?
Oh, well, saying things like, we don't want to hurt you, but we will. And other taunts of saying, you look scared, and you might need your baton.
It seems doubtful.
Stuff like that.
That seems doubtful. They're having only 2 police
You
officers.
said you were there for
testify.
roughly an hour from 1 to 2. Is that accurate?
Yes, approximately.
Was your CDU unit able to hold the line at the base of the West Terrace?
No, we were not.
And why weren't you able to hold that line?
We were not able to hold that line because the mob became increasingly aggressive and hostile towards us, and we were simply outnumbered. So ultimately, the 25, 30 of us or so sort of ended up forming a circle where we were guarding nothing but each other's backs as the mob sort of surrounded us there.
Okay. Did you eventually leave that position?
Yes, I did.
And where did you decide to go from there?
So I knew that we needed to get to the Upper West Terrace to have that higher ground strategic advantage, because I could see the progress that they had made and were making up those northwest steps. We needed to go and help those officers.
Can you describe the path that you took to get there?
Yes. Basically, I went kind of along the corner of the Capitol here, up the northwest lawn, up the north lawn and was able to access the Upper West Terrace again via this north access path.
And where did you go from there?
This sounds
Officer
like
Penjon?
crazy hostile.
From there, I knew,
Crazy.
excuse me, I knew we needed to get back to where those steps were, so I continued west or down along the North Terrace, sort of where that green line is, and I kind of followed that green line over.
And Officer Penjon, how many members of your squad were with you at that time?
Well, I thought that the whole squad was with me, but I would soon learn that we were getting separated, and given the nature of having all of our riot gear on and having to go up the hill and be impeded by some members of the mob as well, it took some time and we got separated. So I soon would learn that it was just myself and 3 or 4 other officers.
Okay. So you said you were going along the North Terrace and walking down or west at this point.
Yes.
Where did you stop there? Did you continue on?
No, I believe he's
I
probably in New
continued,
York.
and rounded
For
the
that
first
trial.
corner and continued
They-
to go to assist those other
They're going after him
officers.
across the country.
And when you got to this corner here, Officer Penjon, what did you see?
From there, I was horrified to see that there were many members of the mob who had already flooded up into that area of the Upper West Terrace.
Roughly there?
More so sort of over here, but I could see all the way down, but they were more in that sort of circle area. From that point, I can see.
And when you rounded that corner, did you stop there?
No, I didn't. So I continued forward because, again, I knew I needed to do my job and respond and get there as quickly as I could.
When you said you continued forward, what direction were you going?
Yes, so at this point, I was going southbound. So again, kind of tracing that green line over to that northwest courtyard area.
And Officer Penjon, what did you see when you got roughly here on the map?
So again, was also horrified even more to see that they had broken into the building and that the mob was streaming inside into the U.S. Capitol.
When you said they had gotten access, what had they gotten? How had they gotten access? How had they gotten in?
Well, from there I could see that they were entering where the red arrow is here, which is an emergency exit fire door. So I assumed that they had broken their way in because those doors are locked with security.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that it's easier to see, Officer Penjon. So just to be clear, that you said from here you saw that people were accessing through, what is this number 1? What's at that number 1?
So where number 1 is it's an emergency exit fire door, and there are windows on either side of it.
Is that what these number 2 and 4 are?
Yes.
And what about number 3?
3 is a fire door emergency exit.
And what do you find if you go through that emergency exit?
There you'll be in the Senate side of the U.S. Capitol on the first floor there.
Okay. How many people do you think, would you estimate you saw in the northwest courtyard when you came around this corner?
I would say at least a few hundred, but again, it was growing because they were coming on the steps as well.
And again, how many of your squad were there?
At that point, it was just myself and 3 or 4 other officers.
What did you and those 3 or 4 officers do at that point?
We continued, and I was the first officer, and I led them to go closer to those breach points in an effort to secure those and prevent further people from breaching the access of the building.
And did the members of the mob let you through?
No, they did not.
You see, okay, this is why I'm getting so frustrated by this. This is why I'm getting so frustrated by this. They trot out these knuckleheads to sit there talking about, oh, it was so terrible, it was so terrible. This is far more prejudicial than it is probative. Because let's say he describes terrible carnage that he saw. As I was explaining 15, 20 minutes ago, the only issue is, at the moment he says it, is that something that would incite people to commit lawlessness. Whatever resulted from that is irrelevant. It either did or it did not. So now, since it's irrelevant, the idea of trotting these folks out here so they could say, oh my God, it was so horrible, I had nightmares from it, that's not relevant. It's not, and it's designed to have the finder of fact be prejudiced and be like, I want to punish someone for this. That's the only possible reason to allow this to come forward. Now, I believe this is probably a bench trial, but even a judge can be swayed by this testimony. And accordingly, this is why it is far more prejudicial than it is probative, because it does not tell us whether or not what he's saying at that time is something that is leading toward incitement. And that's why I have an issue with this. All this evidence should be excluded, not allowed to be got up there and trotted out there and say, oh my God, I still have the nightmares and all that other stupidity, like this cup, sorry. When you're thinking one word and you try to say another word, when I said this cup, cup is the perfect word here. This cup, sometimes I amuse myself. So this cup here crying about, like, you know, how awful it was, or how scary it was, or how mean people were, is purely prejudicial. It does not help give us any insight at all as to whether or not the statements were the cause of this. And absent that, it's just designed to have the finder of fact conclude that there's someone that should be punished for this, so let's punish the defendant.
What happened when you tried to get to those access doors?
When I tried to push forward, I was attacked by members of the mob, and I was punched in the face on my left side. And
See?
I was also pushed,
See?
attacked on the right side.
Purely
And
prejudicial.
before I knew it, they had knocked me on my back, and I couldn't see anything because either my helmet had come down over my eyes, and it felt like somebody was on top of me.
If his wife was next to him and his wife got his head beheaded, not relevant. That's my point. I got a cut, I got a bruise, doesn't matter. It's not relevant. It's just prejudicial.
Were you able to maintain all of your equipment at that point?
No, I was not.
What happened to your equipment?
My Pure 24.
It's time to hit the
baton, which
likes.
I had,
It's time. It's
was
time. That
holding
applies
on
to
my
you,
hands,
Rumble folk, too.
was ripped
And subscribe
from
also,
my grip
please.
and sold
I'd really
by
appreciate it.
some person.
Were you concerned about your service weapon?
Yes, very much so.
And what did you do with that concern?
Well, because my baton had been stolen from me so quickly and so easily, I was very concerned that they would take my gun from me. So I did what I was trained to do, which was just to hold on to it as best I could, maintain that retention and control of my holster.
And this was all while you were on your back on the ground.
Yes.
Did you consider radioing for help, Officer Pinjon?
I did briefly.
And you did briefly, but did you actually radio for help?
No, I did not. And the reason for that was basically because we were just so outnumbered. I felt that there was help needed in many other places as well. And I didn't know if help would come or when, so that's why I did.
I'm sorry, what's the time frame?
Oh, how long were you at the? I'm sorry. How long were you at the Northwest lawn?
So
What time frame?
So that would have been approximately at maybe 2:30 or so.
So this is,
Oh, I think you're saying, when were you in the Northwest courtyard? Is that?
Yeah, approximately 2:30. So by the time I left the Lower West Terrace, I made it, by the time I was in Lower West Terrace, it was probably an hour or so. And so by the time I got up, it was approximately.
Yeah, it looks like
Okay.
this part over here is the jury section, which seems empty. So I'm assuming this is a bench trial.
And your testimony is that people go and get through all four.
And the nature of this type of action seems like something that would be a bench trial.
Windows and fire exits.
They were going through number 3, and I couldn't see exactly, but I knew they were going through door number 1. And I think either one or both of those windows nearby that.
All right, so we're roughly at 2:30 when that's happening, and it's roughly 2:30. You're lying on
Judges
your
allowed to
back
ask
in the Northwest
questions?
courtyard.
It's unusual. It's unusual.
Did you think your life was in
But
imminent
it's more likely to
danger?
happen in a bench trial?
Yes, I did.
How did you get up off the ground, Officer Pinzon?
Fortunately, with the assistance of one of my squad mates, as well as just my own strength and training, I was able to get up and right myself there.
You said you were headed towards this arrow number 3. Were you ever able to get there?
Yes, well, we were just headed into where we could help and stop the breach. That just happened to be the first most accessible door. But yes, I was able to continue to find my way through to ultimately get to that door.
And what did you and your squad do when you reached that door?
We were able to close it and secure it as best we could because it is a fire door. Once it's locked from the outside, or once it's closed, it is locked from the outside.
And were you on the inside of the Capitol or outside of the Capitol after you closed the door?
We stayed on the outside, so we shut the door and continued to defend the door from the outside.
Yeah, that's very weird.
Did members of the mob who were in
It's
that
far more
courtyard
com-
say
far more
anything to
common
you
than
while
bench
you
trial.
were there and securing the door?
Yes, they did.
And what did they say?
They said all kinds of things, similar to what they told me down previously at the Lower West Terrace. Again, we don't want to hurt you, but we will, and we took
Objection,
oath to the
relevance,
Constitution,
objection, relevance, objection, relevance.
that we were traitors
Obvious.
and that they were getting in the building.
Did members of that mob attack you while you were securing that door?
Yes, and they continued to throw things at myself and my fellow officers there.
Were you and your fellow officers able to hold or maintain that position at the door?
Not for very long now.
Why weren't you able to hold or maintain that position?
Makes sense. Thank you, Matthew.
Again, primarily because we were so outnumbered and we, similar to before, had to effectively reevaluate very quickly and determine what we needed to do for a more strategic and tactical advantage, which was not just stand there at that point.
While you were securing that door, was anyone stopping them from going into the other breach points?
Objection calls to speculation.
Do you believe that the assault against you could have been more severe if the only point of entry was where you were guarding?
Objection calls to speculation.
Sustained.
Can you describe the impression of the mob demeanor as they went through the open breaches?
Yes, at this point it had changed because they were very excited and they were cheering, and so they were celebrating because they were breaching into the building.
You said before that you found that guarding that door, that breach point, was untenable. What did you do next after deciding you couldn't keep that position?
So again, because we couldn't keep that, because other officers also had equipment stolen from them, and we were so outnumbered, we collectively felt we needed to get inside the building to.
I'm going to speed this up to 1.5 because this is so boring.
Where we could push them out of the building.
But if you
and
can't
trap them into
comprehend
some
it,
kind of control.
let me know. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, I'm only-
So how did you get back to the building?
Oh,
What
it's at
path did you
1.25.
take?
So I effectively retraced my steps of the way I'd come.
We'll try with
Down
1.25.
And then north, effectively along my green
Get
line.
used to that, and then
up
speed up to 1.5.
to this north terrace and into the north door with that's marked by that yellow arrow.
Officer Pinjon, was your way impeded in it? Were you impeded in any way getting there?
Yes, I was.
And how were you impeded?
At that point, the whole Upper West Terrace had become overrun by people from mob. And when I got to that door, there was many individuals trying to gain access there.
So roughly what time? I understand you probably weren't looking at your watch, but do you have an idea of what time this was?
So that time was probably anywhere between 2:30 and 3 p.m. or so.
Okay. Were you able to make it through the north doors at any point?
I was ultimately by forcing my way and fighting with some of the numbers there to ultimately get in because there were officers inside defending those doors. So it was difficult, but I was able to enter the building there.
How many of these people will listen to his speech? I don't know. How many of these people saw his tweets? I don't know. It's possible that none of them were actually at the speech, right? They got there pretty quick. Yeah. It's possible that with the dampening of cell service, that none of them heard anything that he said that day. That's true.
You entered the building through the north doors there. What did you see?
From there, I could see just complete chaos, and that the halls of the U.S. Capitol were overrun by this mob.
And I want to actually just ask you a little bit more about the layout of the U.S. Capitol. So if you're standing at the north doors and you're facing the way that an arrow is facing, what can you see?
So normally you could see effectively all the way to the south door, that's marked there.
I'm sorry, when you said there, I'm just going to put my marker. I saw where you were pointing. Is that roughly where you were pointing?
Yes, that's correct. So that hallway there serves like the main artery of the building, on the first floor at least. And so you typically see clear from one door all the way to the other across the whole Capitol.
How large is that hallway?
It's a standard hallway, but it's fairly large.
Did you walk down the hallway in this building before? In this courtroom?
Yes, I did.
Was it roughly as wide as that hallway?
I would say yes, maybe slightly narrower than this.
Is it roughly that long?
These are leading
The hallway in
questions.
the Capitol is longer. To me, it appears to be longer than the hallway here in the courthouse.
When you looked down that hallway on January 6th, and you said it was chaos, what could you see looking down the hallway?
Well, I certainly couldn't see all the way down to the end because there were so many people already in the building impeding any further view of mine.
Once you were inside, what did you do?
From there, it again was very chaotic, but we were in that area where it says lower Senate corridors, and we're trying to, again, maintain or gain some kind of control to maintain and enforce some sort of order.
And when you're saying we're trying to enforce some sort of order, how did you go about doing that?
Well, primarily it was to secure the doors and try to push people back outside who had already breached and entered.
When you tried to push people outside, did they willingly go?
No, they did not.
And how would you describe your engagement with
5 days.
members of that mob?
Well, it was very difficult because, again, there were so many of them, and it just sort of turned into
Supposedly,
a back
the
and
state
forth.
is only bringing
It's
2
from the
police
Valley,
officers, Eric Swalwell, who already testified,
So it's just sort of that.
and
that
3 legal law experts.
For a while.
Were you engaging with them from a distance, or how close were you to members of the mob?
Oh, I was very close, and in those corridors, there were many people there that I effectively was engaged in hand-to-hand combat with.
That's what was raised in
How
opening
long,
statement.
roughly, were you engaged in hand-to-hand combat in the halls
That's
of
what
the U.S.
Trump's lawyers
Capitol?
were asking in opening
For
statement.
probably 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. Were you ever able to make it back from the inside to the breach point here?
Yes, I was.
And what happened when you got there? What did you and your squad do?
Well, from there, we again attempted to secure that door from the inside, but it was a similar kind of pushing and pulling of the mob. But there were some Metro Transit police officers who then responded and were assisting us there in an attempt to secure that.
What is this
That
where
got
my
Trump.
marker is right here?
Appear from
What
nowhere.
does that
Blocking
represent?
my way.
That is a staircase.
Your
that
orange
leads up to
glory,
the
rocking up a
entrance
real
to the
American
center.
through his built.
Did you ever engage members of the mob at those stairs?
Just
Yes, I
waving
did,
that
and we attempted to form a
Waving
line to
American
prevent
flag.
further members of the mob from accessing upstairs, but
Still have nightmares.
again, with the chaos and how outnumbered we were, it was not a position I could maintain very long.
Also in that area, did you see, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. In that area, did you see any members of the mob outside of the corridors?
Yes, in what's marked here as the Senate Parliamentarian's office.
And what did you see inside the Senate Parliamentarian's office?
Inside there, I can see that members of the mob had totally ransacked the office. They turned furniture over, they were ripping through file cabinets, pulling papers out, stealing alcohol from drawers, and just really vandalizing and just totally desecrating that office.
What?
Okay.
Let me the bird.
Officer Pinchon, during the 2 to 3 hours that you were in hand-to-hand combat, were you ever near the emergency door and windows that you had talked about up here?
Yes, I was.
What happened there, Officer Pinchon?
So there we were again trying to push them out, kind of back and forth, but we ultimately did as best we could to barricade those doors in an attempt to prevent any further people from coming in.
When you say barricade those doors, what did you use to barricade the doors?
We used what we could, which were primarily wooden placards, sort of information for tourists. You know, there's sort of like a small desk almost with historical information about the building and about Congress's and our country's history. And we pulled those because that was what was most immediately accessible, as well as wooden fire extinguisher holders or cases. Really anything that we could find that we could push up against that door and those windows we were using.
Did members of the mob continue attacking you through that barricade?
Yes, they did.
Do you remember any particular attack on you through that barricade?
Yes, I do.
What happened?
At one point, I distinctly remember dodging lines of pepper spray that came through the broken window there, as well as a sharpened flagpole that was stabbed.
Now, imagine he tried suing Trump for these damages. Like, how crazy would that seem? Imagine that. Like, how insane that would seem. That's essentially what's happening here.
That came just about this close to my face.
Just for the record, Officer Pinchon, you said this close to my face. How close to your face did the sharpened edge of a flagpole come?
Approximately 2 inches.
And where did the end of that flagpole finally end up?
Past my head, past my ear.
Did that cause you significant fear when that went by your head?
Objection, relevance.
Why did that cause you significant fear?
Well, because of the force that was used, I was very much fearful that had it hit me in my eye, take my eye, or further, that it could take my life.
Okay. During this time that you were guarding that area of the Capitol, was your radio on?
Yes, it was.
How loud did you have your radio turned up?
I had it turned up very loud because the alarms of the door breach were blaring, as well as members of the mob having megaphones and all kinds of noise from them. So I had it turned up as high, I think as high as it would go, so I could hear as best I could what was going on outside the building, in and around the building.
Do you remember any unusual radio calls on your radio?
Yes, I do.
And what was one of the unusual calls that you heard?
One of them was that there were shots fired.
What went through your mind when you heard that there were shots fired?
I was
By
obviously
whom?
very concerned, and where my mind most immediately went to was that one of my fellow officers had potentially been shot.
That's not what happened, is it?
How close were members of the mob to you when you got that call?
Very close,
Oh my God.
like within arm's
That
reach.
was very
Do you believe
sad.
that they probably could have heard that radio call as well?
Yes, I know. some-
Objection, calls speculation. Objection. What is the
And how did they
relevant?
react to that call?
Well, some of them didn't. I guess some of them seemed hesitant about it, or perhaps uncomfortable. But by and large, most of them really didn't seem to care.
Ooh,
Okay.
ooh.
At any point in
They're all
time,
listening to
did you
his
respond
radio.
to an officer down radio
So
call?
stupid.
Yes, I did.
And can you explain what happened there?
Yes, there was a call for assistance for an officer down in the area beneath, under the floor where I was.
Bunch of
In
mutts.
the area between
That's
where
what it's
the US
going to
Capitol
produce.
connects
Bunch of
underground
mutts.
Subway, trolley cars over to the south side. And so I responded down in that area to assist.
You say down in that area. How did you get down there?
I went, I believe it was these stairs here.
I'm going to use my marker to show where it looks like you're pointing. Is this the accurate reflection of where you're pointing?
Yes,
So these stairs here, you went down those stairs.
correct, and down into that lower basement area.
What did you find when you went down those stairs?
When I got down there, I saw that there were already numerous officers on scene there to assist. And so, knowing that I had no additional formal medical training beyond basic first aid and CPR that I received in the academy like every other officer received, I knew that I needed to get back. Also, because I was in Riker, that I needed to go back, that I couldn't be useful there. I needed to be more useful back where I was upstairs.
Officer Pinjon, did you later find out who that officer was that was receiving help?
Yes, I did.
Who was that officer?
Officer Ryan Sicknick.
And do you know what happened to Officer Sicknick that day and the next day?
Yes, he was assaulted in line of duty that day and sprayed with chemical irritants like bear spray, and he died the next day, line of duty death.
Officer Pinjon, did you attend Officer Sicknick's funeral?
Yes,
Oh my God.
In what capacity
Relevance.
did you attend his funeral?
Relevance.
I was
Okay.
at that point.
Brian Sicknick was not killed by anything by January 6th. There is zero evidence that he was killed by it. Quite the contrary. There's a ton of evidence that he did not die as a result of anything that happened on January 6th. Did he die a day later? Yes. Yes. He actually reported to his brother that later that evening that he felt fine. So this is just aggravating. This is just
Officer
aggravating.
later assigned with my honor guard in the ceremonial unit, and I was one of the officers who guarded his remains in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol during his flying in honor ceremony.
Officer Pinjon, I'd like to take you back to January 6th. And so you talked about the funeral. Do you at any point in time remember seeing attackers in the crypt of the U.S. Capitol?
Yes, I do.
And so just to orient the court, is this roughly where you saw them? Is this the crypt?
Yes.
What did you do when you saw people there?
I don't know. I'm getting frustrated by
I
myself.
ultimately responded to the crypt and down the stairs to the tunnel, where I believe I heard on the radio or talked to other officers around that additional assistance was needed down there.
Officer Pinjon, you said down the stairs. So these stairs, or what are we looking at?
So there's stairs underneath those. So there's sort of two sets of stairs, one on top of the other. One that leads up to the rotunda, and then one that leads down down to what's marked as the tunnel. A hallway down that feeds right up
Thank
to the
you,
primary
England.
stage.
You're making this.
Okay, so if you go down these stairs here, there's a tunnel directly to this,
Yes, that's correct. A hallway that leads up to that.
and so the inauguration balcony over here.
Correct. Yes, the tunnel opens up to the walkway right to the.
Can you imagine people who listen to months of this?
Is this
ESP
the same tunnel that
in this
presidents use to walk
J6
out
committee
to
hearing?
the inauguration stage?
God.
Yes, it is.
What do you remember seeing when you got down into that tunnel?
How brain dead do people have to be to
When I
listen
got
to
down
this?
there, I could see that there were numerous officers with injuries, some with fairly extensive injuries, and I could see that there were officers defending that door entryway to the tunnel from the stage. That there were many officers packed in tightly as they were defending in front of the mob.
And do you have a rough idea when this was, what time this was?
This was probably around 5 p.m. or so.
Do you remember
in other
anyone
words,
asking
2 hours
for,
after he told everyone
additional help at that
to
point in
be
time?
peaceful.
Yes, I do.
And what happened? What was the ask?
I believe it was Capitol Police official was there and was yelling for fresh bodies, fresh officers to go to the front of the line.
And how did you respond at that time?
Well, at that time, I also witnessed additional officers from the Virginia State Police and Fairfax County Police had responded there. And so knowing that there were fresh officers there, and I myself was very much not fresh after having been engaged with the mob for hours at that point, I stepped aside and let those additional officers go ahead and answer that call.
Were you ever able to exit the tunnel?
Yes, I was.
And what happened when you exited the tunnel? Where did you go?
Well, so after I'd sort of gotten to regain myself and my composure, and I maybe had some water or something there, I was able to exit through the tunnel. There were no longer officers guarding it. They had gone out to the stage, and so I followed and went out to the inauguration stage.
At any point, did you meet any members of the National Guard?
Yes.
And what happened when you met those members of the National Guard?
I had a conversation with a National Guard commander of command staff, and we got to talk about that day.
What did you talk about?
Well, he told me that they had been wanting to come, but they just didn't have the authorization. They were waiting and really trying to come to our assistance, but that they could not because of their orders.
How did that make you feel, Officer Penjon?
Made me feel angry and very disappointed.
Okay. After you spoke with that National Guard member, though, did you believe you needed to continue fighting, protecting the Capitol?
Well, thankfully at that time, it appeared to me that at least most of the Capitol, or the parts that I could see,
Get him,
was
Tara.
back to the grip, back to
Get
the
him.
inside, that there were no longer members of the mob in there. But again, I honestly couldn't see the entire building. So I was feeling
It's not a-
better, but I was still concerned. That
No,
there
you
could
object when
be
there's
people in
no
the building
jury.
More than they could, and because it wasn't secure, they could have left weapons or explosives or anything that we didn't know about inside the Capitol.
Were you ever able to regroup with the rest of your squad that day?
Yes, I was.
When did that happen?
That happened probably around 6 or 7 p.m.
Okay. And where did you meet up with them?
I was able to find a few, and then I think somebody, our lieutenant or a sergeant, called on radio for us to regroup back in the Senate side around those corridors.
So roughly here is where you regrouped?
Yes.
What was the condition of your squad members when you got there?
Well, not good. One of our officers would go to the hospital for injuries, and others had, similar to me, been assaulted and had equipment and gear stolen from them.
Okay. When did you finally leave the U.S. Capitol on January 6th?
Probably maybe around 7 or 8 p.m.
Okay.
We went back to Longmont to just stay, so stage in case we refer to me.
Officer Pinjon, at any time during the time that you were in the U.S. Capitol, were you able to use your cell phone?
Yes, at one point.
And what did you use it for?
At one point, I was able to, when we regained some semblance of control, I was able to escape into an office to send a text message to my family.
And what did you tell your family?
I told them that I had been attacked, but I was okay, and I loved them, but that I had to go back, and I was going back to keep fighting.
So this was in the middle of fighting. So you had to go back again. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So this wasn't after you were done.
No.
Okay. Officer Pinjon, how did you feel at the end of the day on January 6th, 2021?
Physically, I was completely exhausted, and mentally, I was just devastated to see everything that had happened that I could not have even imagined, of how desecrated the building had been, and how violent the mob had been towards me and my fellow officers.
Thank you, Officer Pinjon. I have no further questions here.
Cross-examination?
I wonder what that guy removing the laptop was doing. Like what that laptop's
Good
for.
afternoon, sir.
Well, that's probably questions that he has set up there. I guess.
You mentioned the death of Officer.
Echo. go.
Try it again.
I am your father. Luke.
Okay. All right, that's better. You mentioned earlier the death of Officer Sicknick. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay. And you said that it was a line of duty death. Is that correct?
yes.
How?
Are you familiar with the criteria for declaring something a line of duty death?
Oh,
I'm familiar with
You're full
what
of
the
duty.
police tells us.
And what does the chief of police tell you?
Well, that this wasn't back on duty death.
Oh, how so?
So you know that this particular death was declared a line of duty death, but you do not know what criteria were used to make the determination. Is that fair?
Yes,
Okay. Are you aware that the DC medical examiner conducted an autopsy of Officer Sicknick?
Whoops.
I believe so, but that's the standard thing.
Gold
Yes.
saber.
You know what the results of that autopsy were?
Massacre.
I'm not off the top of my head right now.
Are you aware that the DC medical examiner found that Officer Sicknick died on January 7th of natural causes, sir?
I may have heard that, but I can't.
Oh, but you call it line of duty.
Are you aware that the department accepted the findings of the medical examiner, but nonetheless declared it a line of duty death?
I'm not aware, as I was just an officer. I'm not aware of the department.
Are you aware, based on your time as an officer, that it makes a difference in terms of the benefits that the survivors of an officer receive, depending on whether the department declares it a line of duty death versus a non-line of duty death?
Oh.
I'm not aware of the specifics of
Mm.
difference of those are now.
You have no reason to second guess the findings of the DC medical examiner, correct?
No,
Okay. So if the DC medical examiner found that Officer Sicknick's death was due to natural causes rather than to anything that occurred on January 6th, you have no reason to question that, correct?
I'm not a doctor, so I can question their feelings.
Now, to pound that home, he really needs to submit the medical records and find a way to get that in. They might do that later in the defense. But
Do you know how many
yes, of
demonstrations
course, it
there
was a
were in
lie.
DC on January 6th?
The reason you ask these questions is to show that this guy is basically full of hot garbage. Oh, I did hear something about that.
No, I do not.
Do you know it was more than one?
Well, are you talking permitted demonstrations?
I'm not sure what you mean by permanent demonstrations. What do you mean by?
Permitted.
Oh, permitted. Yes, all right, first of all, let's start with permitted. Do you know how many permitted demonstrations there were?
No, I do not.
Do you know if there were multiple permitted demonstrations?
All I knew at that time was that well, I don't even know if it was permitted or not, but all I knew at that time was that there was one, big one at the White House.
So there's one at the Ellipse. That's what you mean by the White House?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know if there was another permitted one at the Supreme Court?
I do not know.
Do you know if there was another permitted one elsewhere?
No.
Okay. Do you know if there were people who were demonstrating in DC?
And the point to these questions is, how do you know that they didn't hear from someone else? Whenever they were riled up, assuming they were incited by someone, they could have been riled up by somebody like me who would have been speaking at the Supreme Court building or at other places that were permitted for demonstrations, and then marched off to the, not that I would ever incite anyone, God forbid, no one should take that. But I'm saying is, could be just be someone who managed to get a microphone and an audience, and maybe that's the people who riled them up. So how are we attaching this to Donald Trump? Does anyone know anything that any of these people were incited by Trump per se, even if his words had the potential effect of incitement? How do we know that any of these people actually were incited by them? Now, again, based on the explanation I was giving earlier, his actions, it doesn't matter whether people actually are incited. The point is whether they have the possibility of causing imminent lawlessness, which is why none of the stuff that happens at the Capitol is remotely relevant to this. But to the extent anyone's going to consider it relevant, well, then maybe they were incited by someone else. There were 2 other demonstrations happening.
At unpermitted demonstrations that day.
I do not know.
Do you know how many demonstrators were in DC that day in total?
The blind lawyer. I'll try to check that out.
Do you have an estimate of how many were?
Thousands at least.
Would it surprise you that estimates in the area of 120,000 have been circulated?
That would not surprise me, no.
You spoke about what you called the mob. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how are you
Good.
defining the mob?
You tell him to expect.
Well, I don't know the dictionary definition, but to me, a crowd turns into a mob when they are engaging in unlawful conduct and violence.
I asked a bad question, so I apologize for that. I'm asking about the mob. Was it a particular group of people on January 6th that you're referring to as the mob?
It was, I'm not quite sure, but
So if you accept for purposes of this question that there were perhaps 120,000 or that order of magnitude people in DC demonstrating that day, are you saying that all those 120,000 people were the mob, or is it a subset of them?
I didn't see personally 120,000 people, so I couldn't characterize all of them as the mob.
In terms of the people who were at the Capitol during the afternoon when you were there, do you have an estimate of how many people were there?
Thousands, but I don't know exactly.
Somewhere well, let me change. You know that an extensive investigation has been conducted by the Department of Justice and the FBI in the wake of January 6th, correct?
Yes.
And do you know how many people have been prosecuted, roughly?
I think more than 1,000, but I don't know exactly.
About 1,200 sound right to you?
Potentially, yes.
In terms of the people who were at or around the Capitol that day, do you know what percentage of them attended the rally at the Ellipse?
No, I do not.
Do you know what percentage of the people who attended the rally at the Ellipse did not go anywhere near the Capitol that day?
No, I do not.
I take it that you don't claim any ability to read people's minds. Is that fair?
That is fair.
And just by looking at the folks who were there that day, you weren't able to tell if any particular person attended the rally at the Ellipse, right?
Correct.
And you weren't able to tell if any particular person heard President Trump speak at that rally?
Read any of his
Correct.
tweets?
Correct.
And you weren't able to tell if any particular person had seen any of President Trump's tweets, correct?
That's correct.
That's a little bit of a nexus problem there. That's a bit of a nexus problem. We think that people saw that they read it this way and they were incited, and that's why they did.
What do you currently do for a living, sir?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
None of his testimony is relevant.
Can you respond?
Yes, I think the relevance will become clear in a moment, Your Honor. What do you currently do for a living, sir?
Well, I did not re-ask the question when I had.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Objection. I will allow you to answer, but if I don't find it relevant, I'll strike the answer.
I work as a sales position in a technology company,
I'm sorry, what kind of company?
a technology software company.
Do you also sell your artwork?
Yes, I do. I'm also an artist.
Is much of your artwork January 6th themed?
Well, I've been an artist for most of my life, so I've
Just
explored
answer the question.
numerous mediums and subject matter. But yes, after January 6th, it was a source of inspiration, and I used my artwork as a form of healing for the trauma that I endured that day.
So,
And you sell the artwork that you create,
so
right?
you kind of want to be famous
You have an Etsy store?
and have your name tied to Jay
And you
Stitt.
sell your pictures for between $50 and $250 a picture, is that correct?
Some are lower, some are higher, but approximately yes.
And so far you sold about 300 pictures on your Etsy store, is that right?
I have to look exactly, but that sounds about right, yes.
Is it fair to say that you would like to attract more visitors to your Etsy store, buy more pictures?
I don't understand relevance.
Well, how do you're the only one who doesn't.
I think I do, but it's, the objection's overruled.
Yeah, as an
I don't
artist,
understand the relevance. How do you not? He clearly wants to be publicly known for having ties for his relationship to January 6th in order to help sell his artwork. I don't understand. I don't understand the relevance. What's the relevance? I don't understand.
and I guess you could call it a small business owner. Yes, it is attractive for me to have more customers buy my artwork.
And is it fair to say you expect that being on a televised trial like this one about January 6th is likely to raise your profile and sell more pictures about January 6th?
Objection, Your Honor. This calls for speculation of the witness.
No, it calls to his mindset, idiot.
Overall, you can answer.
Yeah, overruled.
Perhaps.
Oh, perhaps.
If I can help, glad to. I have no further questions for you, sir.
Nice.
Any
Nice.
questions
I like
from
that
the
finish.
Republican party?
I don't understand the relevance. How is this relevant?
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Officer Pinjon, I'll try to keep this brief.
Yes. Feel the grift. Feel the
Did
grift.
did the autopsy results of Officer Sicknick keep him from being honored in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol?
Relevance.
No, we did not.
And just to be clear, you guarded his body in the rotunda.
Relevance.
Okay. I want to go back also to
Yes.
you were asked
Yes,
about the
that's
definition of the
grift.
mob, and I want to make sure I got this right.
Grift both
You said a
sides.
mob is a group of people who engages in unlawful conduct and violence. Does that sound roughly about what you said?
Yes,
Would you characterize the people who assaulted you on January 6th as a mob under that definition?
No.
yes.
Why? Insulting him is unlawful? Well, it shows the mindset. It's like they're so exposed here. It's like, oh my gosh, what the heck? That's what makes it a mob? You know what? That right there, case dismissed. What the heck?
Officer Pinjon, there was a question about rallies and permitted events, etc. You responded you thought there was one big event at the Ellipse.
Yes.
And when you were on the northwest lawn and you were looking down from your elevated position, what were you looking toward?
Down Pennsylvania Avenue leads towards White House and Drops.
And what did you see coming down Pennsylvania Avenue?
It did come out months after that.
Coming towards the Capitol.
Okay. I'll be brief about your artwork, Officer Pinjon. Is your artwork your primary source of income?
Ooh, it's not his primary source.
I wish it could be, but no.
Oh, he wishes it could
What
be.
is the-
That's not helpful to the prosecution, to the plaintiff here. It's not prosecution, it's plaintiff. It's not helpful to the petitioners.
The primary reason that you engage in artwork post January 6th, Officer Pinjon?
Like I previously stated, it's, I always turn to art in difficult times as a creative outlet to express myself, but it became more important post January 6th as I dealt with post-traumatic stress symptoms to be able to express myself and heal from that
I
experience.
have PTSD. That's why I have to keep painting that thing that
Are
gave
you
me
here today to
PTSD.
sell more artwork?
No.
Why are you here today, Officer Pinjon?
I'm here today to share my
Objection
story
leading.
and speak the truth of what happened to me and what I saw, heard, and experienced on January 6th.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Officer Pinjon, thank you so much for your testimony today. You are released.
I guess they're not allowing redirect, recross.
We will go on break until 3:20.
Okay. Let's see. I'm going to refresh. Try catching up here. Uh-oh.
Roughly. Much of your artwork.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
I want to go back also to you were asked about the definition of the mob. Is your artwork your primary source?
What is going on here? Oh, I know. I watched in the beginning. That's what I got to do. Watch in the beginning. I'm going to refresh. Watch in the beginning. This seems about right. We're about 40 minutes behind, so this should be right.
Watching some videos.
We're going to be watching some videos and seeing some photos. And I know we had discussed at an earlier hearing that there was going to be a period in the case where we wanted to present video evidence and some of the other evidence that wouldn't be coming in through a witness. So we'll do that now. Your Honor will be happy to hear that we are well ahead of time. And then given
Because
what
we
I
have
had
no
said this
evidence.
morning about the witnesses who abruptly pulled out, that gives us some time back as well. So I think we're going to be good. I don't
think the evidence presentation will go all the way through to 5:30,
Okay.
but we've already spoken to counsel
5:30.
for respondents, and we would start with our next witness tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm warning you.
I did not. I don't know if it's going to be that scintillating, but
I think the popcorn is.
perhaps you're right, is the way we might
Right.
need it.
So-
But just in terms of timing, I wanted to let Your Honor know why we don't have that witness here at the ready. The estimates for cross-examination, and I'm not going to fault them at all, were quite a bit longer, shall we say, than the cross-examinations actually were. So we're well, as I said, ahead of schedule right now.
So we'll just do whatever video evidence you have and then we'll break for the day.
Yes, and there will be some discussion, I think, of how you would like us to present some of the January 6th report findings. I could read them, but we can talk about whether that makes sense to do in terms of a good use of everyone's time. But Mr. Gessler has said that he has a procedural matter that he wanted to raise before the.
This is a
entertainment.
5-day trial, and they say that she's probably going to issue a written decision after
Thank you, Your
the
Honor.
5
So
days.
I want to go back to our status conference. I believe it was last week. They're all beginning to blend together. And we talked a little bit about experts. We have, Your Honor had said, if there's a way for us to get an expert, the door was open to testimony next week sometime. I think we've identified an expert on political communications as a rebuttal expert for Professor Simi. May we present that? We'll produce a report. I can't give you an exact timeline, but I know the timeline's going to be within a few days. I understand it's pretty fast. But I'm asking if we would be able to do that, Your Honor.
And do the petitioners have any objection?
And Your Honor, I just sprung this on them. So this is the first they've heard of it as well.
We do have an objection, Your Honor. Our expert on this subject is going to be testifying tomorrow. He's not obviously going to have an opportunity or ability to respond, and they are going to be able to tailor any sort of expert report to his testimony that's offered tomorrow. We think that is unfair. They've had ample amount of time to find somebody and have not. I don't think next week was meant for an entirely new expert. I think it may have been meant for if Mr. Heafy needed to testify next week, or if there was some fact witness, but this is introducing a whole new kettle of fish into the case.
So to be fair, that's a reasonable point that the petitioners are making. I'm assessing this as an attorney, trying to figure out, if I was sitting as a judge and trying to determine fairness of a request and the response, they're not supposed to be able to just find new witnesses, which there's going to be a big battle here of legal experts trying to basically give their opinion as to whether or not this is something that the judge should recognize as being engaging in insurrection and thereby somehow appropriate to strip Donald Trump from the ballot. This is a weird thing. It's a very weird thing because they could just submit an amicus brief. They wouldn't have to testify. It's a weird thing to have experts coming in and testifying about what the law is. It's very unusual. So, but apparently there's supposed to be 2 or 3 experts who are supposed to be testifying on behalf of the petitioner, and the defense's experts who are supposed to rebut them are supposed to be coming later. And apparently some of them are not able to make it there till next week. So parts of this trial presumably are going to be next week. Now, what he's asking, what defense asked is look, we didn't get a report to them yet. We want to get the report to them in a couple of days. And petitioner, I think, is making a fair objection here in saying that's not fair that experts are supposed to see what other experts are saying and be able to respond to it. They're going to be able to see what our expert says. Our expert's not going to know what the other side's saying, and that's not a fair way for this to proceed. So that's why we're objecting to it. To be fair, that's a reasonable objection. If we take Trump and my political feelings about this outside and just look at this legally, I think that's actually a pretty fair objection. Okay, I've been busy at work now listening to all the plaintiff's witnesses. Were any credible? Not. I mean, there was some good attacks on cross, and did they all Swalwell and this guy get catching lies and misinformation? Oh yeah. Well, I mean, less about lies, other than the last one was only about his Brian Sicknick and also his vested interest in becoming famous, so that he could sell J6 artwork. So, and there you go, Tankrat. So I just wanted to weigh in with my perspective as far as in order to give you a fair assessment as to what seems reasonable just from a legal perspective.
Okay, I'm gonna let them, everything has been on an extremely compressed schedule,
and that's a reason for a judge to be accommodating, because everything has been very fast. This case was filed a month ago on an emergency basis.
Professor Simi?
Correct.
If Professor Simi wants to have a rebuttal to that, which we normally happen in his testimony and wants to do so by phone.
And I agree with you, Larry,
the court will allow
that he
so
should
long
ask,
as
this
that
attorney should ask now
rebuttal
for a chance to
testimony is
rebut afterwards, which he probably has a good chance of getting.
Yes, of course, Your Honor. No, we're going to work very hard to get that. I'm not looking to do an ambush here, but we're going to, we've had some communication.
Great question,
Brought
Larry.
that up, and we're going to work like crazy to get something to petitioners. That would be a meaningful report. Understanding the court's framework from before, that there's not an opinion that's in the report that cannot be elicited on the stand. So we're prepared to abide by that and go forward.
And Your Honor, as for us, I assume, and I would ask if it's not the correct assumption, that Professor Simi doesn't have to now submit a rebuttal report in advance of his rebuttal testimony in response to the testimony that we don't yet know
See,
what is going
there
to
you
be.
go.
Let's see what his rebuttal report looks like before we get too deep into this conversation. But I understand that normally, in the normal course, Professor Simi.
That's a
would have
reasonable way for the judge to
chance
handle this.
potentially to rebut, and that he would do so when he's on the stand, and he's obviously not gonna have that opportunity. So we'll do what it takes to level the playing field.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And is Mr. Levy coming or
Oh.
testifying?
He is available to testify remotely on Friday. So I expect that I would do a short direct with Mr. Heafy, and then opposing counsel would be able to cross-examine.
Okay. So he'll be testifying after that.
Yes, he'll be, I think, testifying from Washington, D.C.
Okay. So the videos.
Yes, so I've tried to limit this to exhibits that Your Honor has already ruled on, saying that they would be admitted or were conditionally admissible. There are a few, I raised one earlier today that has not been ruled on yet, but I will obviously raise that when I get to it. So
Okay, is that the videos which were embedded in the tweets?
No, just a
yes,
heads up.
those two, Your Honor. I think
these
there's one of
videos
those in here. I don't know if
contain
it's both in here.
scenes of violence.
So I was going to raise that when we got there.
I'm
But I was
gonna have
thinking
to,
of
like,
the
skim-
Giuliani.
I'm
and
gonna have to like
Eastman
block that
speech.
out because
Again,
YouTube
President
will
Trump referred to that speech,
shut me down
or those
if I
speeches
show
explicitly within
J6
his
violence.
ellipse speech. It was the justification that President Trump gave and provided to the crowd on that day that Vice President Pence had the ability to reject certification of the electoral votes. And so it was a critical piece of that speech. And President Trump actually selected them as speakers before he took the stage.
Yeah, this is less about
So,
Colorado
and again, we're not
individually
offering it
than
for
it
the
is
truth
about the
of the matter
principle
asserted.
I
being
understand you're not offering it for
set up for
the
multiple
purpose of
states.
it,
But look, in theory, I'll tell you right now,
Yes.
normally I would think that he could not win Colorado, but with the way that they're persecuting him, maybe he could win Colorado. Because I'll tell you right now, they keep persecuting him. They're just raising more votes for him. Maybe he could take Colorado.
Issues with having a speech of someone who then isn't available for cross-examination, though I suppose Mr. Gessler would have a lot better chance of getting Mr. Eastman or Mr. Giuliani to respond. So I'm still thinking about it.
And Your Honor, to be fair, I think to everyone, I don't think anybody's getting either of those two to testify, other than to assert their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, given that they're both currently under indictment. But again, if it had been a document that President Trump held up and said, here's the proof that I have that Vice President Trump or Vice President Pence can decertify the election, I think he would allow it in as part of the speech. He refers to it, and it comes right before his speech that day. It is an integral part of what he did in his plan to incite the riot.
That only shows that
And obviously, Your Honor can take it for the weight.
he's not trying to incite lawlessness. He's trying to incite lawfulness.
Your Honor, at the end of the day, we're talking about President Trump's, whether or not he quote, engaged in a insurrection. And referral to other speakers is not President Trump speaking. It's not. And it's not President Trump's engagement.
Good point.
And so we would continue to object to that, just as President Trump may refer to many things and has referred to many things over 6-8 years of a political career, or more. But not every one
This
of
is
them,
true too.
we would submit, none of them are admissible as his statement or as his embracing of that statement.
I would say that is generally true, but this was the speech right before him on the ellipse on January 6th, speeches that he planned to have there that day, speeches that he referred to explicitly within his own speech as what gave him the justification for saying that the vice president could decertify. It's incredibly important context to understand what President Trump was saying.
I simply said the rules of evidence don't.
That's what I was saying when Viva was on here earlier. Correct.
I want to I'm gonna continue to ponder it while I also simultaneously watch the other videos.
Okay. Well, I was going to start and try and break this up into two different categories. The first is additional evidence that there was an insurrection on January 6th, and then additional evidence that President Trump engaged in that insurrection.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with an admitted exhibit, plaintiff's 133.
133 will be officially admitted.
And exhibit 133 is a series of photos taken by Nate Gowdy. He was a photographer that was present at the Ellipse and then at the Capitol on January 6th. And we'll just run through a few of those. The nice thing about these photos is they have a timestamp on the upper left hand side. So I just want to look at a few. So let's go to page 4. And the timestamp there is 11:38 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you see there, somebody there with Pence has the power. And again, this is why I think so important, the Giuliani speech. Photos of individuals in camo and gear with those plates.
Duh.
Discussed earlier.
So, Mr. Kessler, I told you they'd get their turn.
I'm glad to know the ambulances are an equal opportunity interrupters.
Yeah. Mr. Grimsley, just make sure you speak into the microphone.
Yes. And then let's go to page 17, which is from 2:14 p.m. that afternoon. And you see people holding on and carrying away the bike racks.
Okay.
At 2:36, and this is after the tweet about Vice President Pence, you see the tear gas and chemical irritant and individuals
Fired
swarming,
by
the
whom?
Capitol.
Fired by whom?
Here again is another photo that shows individuals carrying, the attackers carrying the Trump flags and various Trump paraphernalia.
It's like that in every state
And that's
that goes
page
blue.
26.
It's always the
3:27
cities.
p.m. This is page 30 at 3:55 p.m. And you see the sign there, certify honesty, not fraud, reflecting the claims of fraudulent
Objection,
election.
speculation.
And you see again the Trump paraphernalia and flags and the crowd proceeding towards the Capitol. And then here on page 37 is a photo at 5:07, and you see
I'll tell you this much.
still Trump paraphernalia. It's getting dark outside, and you see the tear gas.
The
And-
tear gas is almost certainly fired by the police.
Now I'd like
almost
to play
certainly.
a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 90.
Your Honor, may I just make one clarification? These are being admitted over our objections. We would object to counsel's characterization of them, not the evidence. So for example,
That's tear gas. By the way, there's a big difference between tear gas and pepper spray and other types of gases. Some are far more toxic than others and far more harmful. And we have, like, I don't understand the relevance if it's fired by the police.
Did the photographer say, hey, come on in and let me get a photo of you all? Or were they locked arm in arm, preparing to storm the Capitol? There's just no context. So we're going to make that objection for the record, and we will ask the court not consider counsel's characterization of these photos because it doesn't come from a witness and counsel's statements are not evidence. Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm next going to play a clip from Plaintiff's Exhibit 94. It's a video that was admitted by Your Honor on October 27th. Part of it, I think, has already been played in the opening, so I'll play only a portion of it here.
94 is admitted over objection.
Not sure how much this I can show. And again, I'm not promoting violence. Yeah. Okay, so not promoting violence, because I don't promote violence.
So I think you heard other portions of Exhibit 94 during openings, so I won't play those here. Next, I'd like to show Exhibit 105,
Exhibit 105, submitted.
and this is an exhibit Your Honor has said was admitted. It is a transcript of the closing argument in the,
Have I ruled on this previously, or am I jumping the gun?
oh, I'm sorry, it's stipulated. You have not ruled on it. It was stipulated.
Okay.
And so this is a transcript of the closing argument in the second impeachment trial. This is from President Trump's lawyer, Mr. Vanderveen. And he says, yet the question before us is not whether there was a violent insurrection of the Capitol. On that point, everyone agrees. And I've got video of that as well. We hadn't marked that. I can play that, but to be fair, I haven't provided that to the other side, and we can wait if they'd like, but it's just video of the same statement.
I don't have a video of the same statement.
Thank you.
I don't remember Vanderveen saying that. I did watch his entire impeachment, not with you guys, but I did watch all of it. And I'll tell you, I don't remember him saying that, but that is a poor statement for him to make. The follow-up statement is based on the explicit text of the House impeachment article. This trial is about whether Mr. Trump willfully engaged in incitement of violence and even insurrection against the United States. And that question they have posed in the article's impeachment has to be set up against the law of this country. No matter how much truly horrifying footage we see the conduct of the rioters and how much emotion has been shed in this trial, that does not change the fact that Mr. Trump is innocent of the charges against him. Somehow he didn't highlight that part. Didn't highlight that part. Yeah, it should change your mind. It should change your mind.
Now I want to play video from Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. Again, not the entire video, but this is video from January 6th. The timestamp on the upper right.
4:27 p.m. This is after he told him to remain peaceful.
So I'd move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, as well as Plaintiff's Exhibit 105. I forgot about that one.
It's exhibit 1. So the other one you said was 105?
105, Your Honor.
105 is stipulated, so admitted.
Your Honor, if I may, I don't think number 105 was stipulated. I think it was. I may be corrected.
That's what I would say as well.
Again, number 95, number 94, number 1, objection. And I'll simply remove my objection with respect to the first video you saw. That's a movie production. There are sound overlays on it. It's a montage. It's a good movie production, and it was produced by the January 6th Commission for the purpose of being a good movie production. Shouldn't be evidence there. We don't have an opportunity to cross-examine. We don't know the full context of each one of those videos. We've not been able to pull them apart. We've not been able to pull the witnesses for the people who actually took those videos, or the actual context of those radio transmissions and how it's all been assembled together. So just as I would submit that you wouldn't accept a Steven Spielberg production for the truth of the matter asserted. Maybe this rises to that level, Paul, but you wouldn't accept this one either. So that's going to be our objection.
You might if it was documentary footage, which is what we have here.
It's also it's documentary footage that has been doctored, that we know has been doctored documentary footage. That's why it's a production.
More would be accepted. And Michael Moore's documentaries would be accepted by this court here if you want to use that knowledge.
Nice.
91st submitted.
And so we just looked at a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 1. I want to play a portion of Plaintiff's Exhibit 92. Again, that was ordered admissible on October 27th.
I'm going to err on the side of caution. They're inside the building. I don't know what's going to happen here. Nothing exciting.
I move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 92.
92 will be admitted.
And now I want to show a page from Plaintiff's Exhibit 26, which is the GAO report from February of 2023 regarding the investigation event entity into the Capitol security during January 6th. This is one that was admitted as well.
Stipulated, I believe. And it's admitted, yeah.
And I'd just like to go to page 7. And this is a finding from that document. In the months leading up to the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, there were reported efforts to organize large groups of protesters to travel to Washington, D.C. to dispute the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. Over the course of about 7 hours, more than 2,000 protesters entered the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, disrupting the peaceful transfer of power and threatening the safety of the vice president and members of Congress.
What
The
is
attack
this
resulted
report?
in assaults on at least
This is day 6
174 police
committee
officers,
report?
including 114 Capitol Police and 60 D.C. Metropolitan Police Department officers. These events led to at least 7 deaths and caused
No,
about $2.7
did not.
billion
This we know
in
is not
estimated
true.
costs. As
Definitely-
of September 2022, more than 870 individuals have been arrested on charges, including entering a restricted federal building, assaulting officers with a deadly weapon, and seditious conspiracy.
And so when you say that it's page, is it page 7 of the exhibit, even though it says page 1?
It's page 7 of the document, but page 1, I guess, of the report. It probably has some little I's and little 2 I's.
Okay.
And now I wanted to point to just a couple of the January 6th report findings that Your Honor has found conditionally admissible. And the first is finding 119, which is at page 35 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 78. More than 140 Capitol and Metropolitan Police were injured, some very seriously. A perimeter security line of Metropolitan Police intended to secure the Capitol against intrusion broke in the face of thousands of armed rioters, more than 2,000 of whom gained access to the interior of the Capitol building.
Oh my God.
A woman who attempted to forcibly enter the chamber of the House of Representatives through a broken window while the House was in session was shot and killed by police guarding the chamber.
See, the House was not in session at that time.
Vice President Pence
It
and
was not in
his family
session
were
when
at
she was
risk,
breaking through.
as were those Secret Service professionals protecting him. Congressional proceedings were halted, and legislators were rushed to secure
I don't understand how any of this is admissible.
locations.
Yeah, I understand. It's just
So that's
stupid.
the evidence I wanted to present now on whether there was an insurrection.
It's such
I'd like to turn
hearsay.
now to whether
All
President
this is
Trump
hearsay.
engaged in that insurrection.
All of this is foundationless hearsay.
I'm doing this for the record, Your Honor. We're going to object to that January 6th finding. We're particularly going to object to the characterization that the protesters were armed. All the testimony you've heard today from police officers was that they weren't armed with any firearms or knives or weapons. So that's our judgment.
And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and thank you for your objection. But just because I allow a finding in does not mean that I am accepting it as true.
I understand, Your Honor, and it's our job to explain to you why that is the correct finding.
But I just want to, in case you didn't hear me say it before, I just want to make sure that just because I allow in the January 6th report does not mean that I agree with all of the findings.
I understand.
So now turning to the evidence on engagement. Wanted to start with Plaintiff's Exhibit 47. These are clips from President Trump's speech from election night, or really the next morning. So very early, November 4th, 2020.
He's inciting on November what happened
Yes.
January 6th.
I want to thank the American people for their tremendous support. Millions and millions of people voted for us tonight. And a very sad.
And before you complain, I know the audio is terrible. I know it's terrible. I know it's terrible. It's not me. It's them.
People is trying to disenfranchise black people. And we won't stand for it. We will not stand for it.
So that's the first clip, and I'm not going to play the entire speech. It's about 9 minutes long. So the second.
This is a fraud on the American
This
public.
is a fraud.
This is an
fraud.
embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
And I apologize, you said this is all from the same speech that was 90 minutes long on the night the morning after the election?
It was only 9 minutes long, Your
9
Honor.
minutes,
So
okay.
I wanted to spare you the whole speech. We could play it if you want, but just wanted to play those 2 portions.
Only if Mr. Kessler wants to play the whole thing.
You never know, Your Honor, but not right now.
Okay.
And so now I want to move on to Plaintiff's Exhibit 148, which has already been admitted. That is the compilation of President Trump's tweets over time. And I want to start with page 12. And I'm going to walk through these. Mr. Olson walked through some of these during his opening, but I will walk through more of them here. So November 5th, 2020, this is the morning after the speech we just saw. At 9:12 a.m., he tweets, "Stop the count." November 8th, a few days later, "We believe these people are thieves. The big
Yep.
city machines are corrupt.
True.
This was a stolen election." Best
Yep.
pollster in Britain wrote this morning that this clearly was a stolen election.
Agreed.
It's impossible to imagine that Biden outran Obama in some of these states.
Yep. That is
Next
impossible.
one, same page. "Where it mattered, they stole what they had to steal." And that, too, I believe, is November 8th. Next page, page 13, November 9th. "Nevada is turning out to be a cesspool of fake votes.
This
At
entire
M. Schlapp and
stupidity.
at Adam Lassalt are
that he's
finding
reading
things that
off
when
here.
released will
I'm
absolutely,
going to turn this
will be
down for a
absolutely
moment
shocking."
while it's playing.
The next day, November 10th.
You can read
"People will
along
not
with him if you
accept
like.
this rigged election."
This only shows how this is all designed to
Next
suppress
page,
his free
14.
speech.
"A guy named Al Schmidt, a Philadelphia
It's
commissioner,
all designed.
so-called
This
Republican
clearly
rhino,
didn't
is
incite
being
anyone
used
to
big time
commit
by the
any
fake
sort of
news media to
lawlessness.
explain how honest things were
2 months
with respect to
later,
the
not
election in
imminent
Philadelphia.
lawlessness.
He
That's what it
refuses
has to
look at
be.
a mountain of corruption
Imminent
and dishonesty. We win.
lawlessness.
November 12th.
And they're showing
Dominion
stuff from
deleted
2 months
2.7
earlier.
million Trump votes nationwide.
To
Data
prove
analysis finds
imminent
221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to
Astonishing.
Biden.
It's all
941,000
desperation
Trump
to
votes
shut
deleted.
this man up.
States using
That's
Dominion
all they
voting
care
systems
about.
switched
Just shut him up.
435,000
Punish
votes
him for
from
speaking.
Trump to Biden.
And it's not just about him, it's about every one of us.
Page 15, November
Anyone who disagrees
13th.
with whatever
Florida
narrative is
Secretary
being
of State,
sold,
the
shut
so-called
them
Republican rhino,
up.
won't let the
Punish
people
them.
checking the ballots see the signatures for fraud. Why? Without this, the whole process is very unfair and close to meaningless. Everyone knows that
He should
we
be
won the
objecting
state.
on relevance.
Where is Brian Kemp? Go down to the bottom of page 16, November 14th. What are they trying to hide? They know, and so does everyone else. Expose the crime. November 14th, page 17, 11:17 p.m. Antifa scum ran for the hills today when they tried attacking the people at the Trump rally because these people aggressively fought back. Antifa waited until tonight when 99% were gone to attack innocent MAGA people. DC police, get going. Do your job and don't hold back.
Yeah, because he gave a rally speech
November
and
16th,
people were literally
page
physically
18.
attacked by Antifa.
Dominion is running our election. Rigged. They go on. December 1st, 2020, page 27. Rigged election. Show signatures and envelopes. Expose the massive voter fraud in Georgia. What is Secretary of State and at Brian Kemp, Georgia, afraid of? They know what we'll find. And Your Honor, this was one of the tweets with the embedded video that I had talked about earlier.
I'm going to allow videos that I tweeted.
It's not because it's embedded. That's the
This is
problem.
plaintiff's 126.
It's
We move
because
for
it's
admission
not
of it.
relevant to anything that happened a month later.
It's all gone too far. All of it. Jerry they asked Chris Price, its patriot who ran CISA, to be shot. A 20-something tech in Gwinnett County today has death threats and a noose put out saying he hung for treason because he was transforming a report on factions from EMS to a county computer so he could read it. It has to stop. Mr. President, you have not condemned these actions or this language. Senators, you have not condemned this language or these actions. This has to stop. We need you to step up, and if you're taking a position of leadership, show some. My boss, Senator Raffensperger, he's out of
Senator Raffensperger.
They have people doing carry for their house. They have people
Bunch of
come onto their property.
rhinos.
Chris, his wife of 40 years, is getting sexualized threats through her cell phone. It has to stop. This is elections. This is the backbone of democracy, and all of you who have not said a damn word are complicit in this.
You're
I can't
complicit.
begin to explain the level of anger I have right now over this.
Yeah,
And every
no one
American, every
cares.
Georgian, Republican, Democrat alike should have that same level of anger. Mr. President, it looks like you likely lost the state of Georgia. We're investigating. There's always a possibility I get it. You have the rights to go to the courts. What you don't have the ability to do, and you need to step up and say this, is stop inspiring people to commit potential acts of violence. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get killed.
So let's listen to a rhino sitting
So
here
back to
complaining that people are getting shot and killed in
that
December,
is
month before
P126, which is a video embedded in a tweet in plaintiff's 148.
Do you object, Mr. Kessler?
Yeah, I do. Look, I mean, as a former Secretary of State who's received death threats, violent sexualized threats against my mother, my daughter, and my wife, I'm empathetic to this. But this is an out-of-court statement intended to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's highly inflammatory, should not be part of this hearing.
So the court rules it was adopted by President Trump when he decided to tweet it to.
That is idiocy. This is nonsense. He clearly is saying it's rigged. He's saying the exact opposite of what the speaker is saying. To say he's adopting it is so stupid, so mindless. I don't know what this judge is thinking. She's crazy. She is crazy that he's adopting a speech. So if I quote tweet someone and I'm bashing that original tweet, I'm adopting that statement. That's what this judge just decided here. What an utter farce. That is ridiculous. He's adopting this statement. If he quote tweets it and says, here, okay, when he reads it, he says it's a rigged election in the face of this thing, he's basically saying, go to hell, you're full of garbage. Anyone who's reading it who has second grade reading comprehension would understand that. But this judge apparently says, oh, no, he's totally adopting that. It's so stupid. This is the woman who's supposed to be deciding whether or not Trump should be kept off the ballot. Unbelievable.
Trump has, which I assume is many. And so I'm going to allow it.
And Your Honor,
I will submit that it's an improper inference to say that President Trump adopted this as his own.
He tweeted this statement. Okay? Whether that's illegal adoption or not, I'm going to allow it based on the fact that he's the one that has publicized this statement vis-a-vis his Twitter account or whatever they call it now.
and Your Honor, it's not that we're offering it necessarily for the truth of the matter asserted, although we're happy to do that as well. It's to show President Trump's state of mind and his communications to his supporters. And that's why I wanted to come back to this tweet on page 27 of Exhibit 148, which is the tweet where President Trump retweets this video that you just saw. Rigged election, show signatures and envelopes, expose the massive voter fraud in Georgia. What is Secretary of State and @Brad Kemp GA afraid of? They know what we'll find. And there's just more of these, so I'll skip over. So page 33, tweet from December 10th, 2020, 9:24 a.m. The Supreme Court has a chance to save our country from the greatest election abuse in the history of the United States. 78% of the people feel, no, the election was rigged. 3:28 p.m., December 11th. If the Supreme Court shows great wisdom and courage, the American people will win perhaps the most important case in history, and our electoral process will be respected again. December 11th, later in the day, 11:50 p.m. The Supreme Court really let us down. No wisdom, no courage.
They did.
So
I made a
let's
whole
fast
video
forward
about
to
it.
December 19th. And this is on page 41, and you've seen this tweet already. But it says, Peter Navarro releases 36-page report alleging election fraud, more than sufficient to swing victory to Trump. At great report by Peter, a great report. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Big protest in DC on January 6th. Be there, will be wild. And then this is the other embedded video that we were talking about, Your Honor. It was played in part in opening. I believe this is, the embedded video is Plaintiff 73. And the important point here is it's released the very same day, right after, basically, the will be wild tweet on December 19th.
I'm gonna watch it first before I go on its invisibility.
I may not love this guy. They had a duty. They had a duty. Just because you don't like a case doesn't mean you have an opportunity to just say we're going to ignore our duty and not handle this case.
So that was a video that President Trump retweeted.
Had they taken the case and decided against Trump, that would have been infinitely better than punting from their duty. Infinitely better. They cheapened their role. The Constitution that empowers them to have any power at all says that when one state sues another, the Supreme Court shall hear that case. Not may, shall, as in must. That's how lawyers use the term must. Shall. The very next section says that the Supreme Court shall be compensated for their time. Not may be compensated. They get compensated because it says shall. They must be compensated by the Constitution. And they must hear a case when one state is suing another state. That's one of three reasons that they had to take the case, and yet somehow, mysteriously, punted. Says, no, that's not for us.
Tweeted on December 19th to his followers.
Admit it's not being offered for the truth and honesty.
And that's Exhibit 1, or Exhibit 73, Your Honor.
Then what is it being offered for? What is
And
it
I'm
being
not going to go
offered
through the
for?
tweets that Mr. Olson put up where he showed the number of times between December 19th and January 6th where President Trump tweeted out about the rally on January 6th. And just moving to January 5th, this is page 75 of Exhibit 148. Donald Trump, 10:27 a.m., see you in D.C. 11:06 a.m., the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors. 5:05 p.m. on page 76, Washington is being inundated with people who don't want to see an election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats. Our country has had enough. They won't take it anymore. We hear you and love you from the Oval Office. Make America great again. 7 minutes later, 5:12 p.m., I hope the Democrats, and even more importantly, the weak and ineffective rhino section of the Republican Party, are looking at the thousands of people pouring into D.C. They won't stand for a landslide election victory to be stolen. January 5th, a few minutes later, I think, 5:25 p.m., this is page 77. Antifa is a terrorist organization. Stay out of Washington. Law enforcement is watching you very closely. At Department of Defense.
I gotta refresh.
For a landslide election victory to be stolen. January 5th, a few minutes later, I think, 5:25 p.m., this is page 77. Antifa is a terrorist organization. Stay out of Washington. Law enforcement is watching you very closely. At Department of Defense, at the Justice Department, at DHS.gov, at DHS_Wolf, at Secretary Bernhardt, at Secret Service, at FBI. Fast forwarding to 1 a.m. in the morning, January 6, 2021, this is page 80 of the exhibit. If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency. Many states want to decertify the mistake they made in certifying incorrect and even fraudulent numbers in a process not approved by their state legislatures, which it must be. Mike can send it back. Later that morning, 8:17 a.m., states want to correct their votes, which they now know were based on irregularities and fraud, plus corrupt process never received legislative approval. All Mike Pence has to do is send them back to the states, and we win. Do it, Mike. This is a time for extreme courage. And it wasn't just tweets that the president was sending out over this period of time. I want to show clips from two speeches. The first is Plaintiff's Exhibit 99. This is a speech by President Trump from December 2nd, 2020. That I think has been admitted or will be admitted pursuant to this court's order.
Crispy Legs sends a rumble rant. This is bad for the case in Georgia. He's proving Trump really believed the election was stolen. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. It's asked this every. Their arguments are constantly self-refuting. Great point, though. Great point, Crispy.
So Megan and I will be admitted.
I agree with your take there.
Did you say it's clips or the whole?
It's a clip.
Okay. And I just want to be clear in terms of the rule of completeness. That
Apparently.
The interveners was welcome to play their parts.
This is where they drew the line.
So they choose.
This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd election. If we don't root out the fraud, the tremendous and horrible fraud that's taken place in our 2020 election, we don't have a country anymore.
So move to admit Plaintiff's Exhibit 99.
Admitted.
The next speech is from December 22nd. Again, it is a clip. This is Plaintiff's Exhibit 100.
You almost wonder why we have a First Amendment.
The truth is, we won the election by a landslide. We won it big. It is historically, mathematically, politically, and logically impossible. It did not happen. He did not win. We won by a landslide. If this egregious fraud is not fully investigated and addressed, the 2020 election will forever be regarded as illegitimate and the most corrupt election in the history of our country.
None of this should be admissible.
So I've shown evidence of what went on between November 3rd and January 6th. So I now want to turn to January 6th itself. And Your Honor, this is where I would play Plaintiff's Exhibit 131, Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Eastman.
I'm going to sustain the objection of Mr. Giuliani and Mr. Eastman.
Oh.
There's been plenty of evidence that President Trump was telling people that Vice President Pence had the ability to do something. And I think it's cumulative, and so I think there's a sense of unfairness since they won't be here to testify.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I wanted then to move to Plaintiff's Exhibit 49. And these are clips from President Trump's speech on the ellipse. It's about 12 minutes in total. We didn't.
So they had an oral arguments before the judge earlier about admitting admitting as evidence parts of speeches given by Giuliani and Eastman at the ellipse on January 6th. And he's like, why would we hold him accountable for speeches made by someone else? So she basically is saying, well, it's cumulative, so whatever. As opposed to, I don't know why we would hold him
I want to
accountable.
submit everybody the 90 minutes, but certainly if Your Honor wants to watch it, I encourage you to do so. But move to admit 49. I don't think there's any objection to that.
It's been stipulated to, so it's admitted. So this is the eclipse speech, but it's the whole thing.
It's not the whole thing, Your Honor. In fact, I have with me, just for ease of reference, a highlighted transcript, which has the clips. So I think that would be good for everybody if they want to follow along. May I approach?
Yes, please.
I'm trying to get the volume right, but these are so variable, so you gotta hold on for a second sometimes. So I hope I'm not gonna blow anybody's ears out here.
We have hundreds of thousands of people here, and I just want them to be recognized by the fake news media. Bring your cameras, please, and show what's really happening out here, because these people are not going to take it any longer. They're not going to take it any longer. All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. We don't concede for this death to come. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. Today I will lay out just some of the evidence proving that we won this election, and we won it by a landslide. This was not a close election. We will not let them silence your voices. We're not going to let it happen. Not going to let it happen. guts. You know what? He's got guts. Unlike a lot of people in the Republican Party. He's got guts. He fights. He fights. I'll tell you, thank you very much, John. Fantastic job. I watched. That's a tough act to follow, those two. John is one of the most brilliant lawyers in the country, and he looked at this and he said, what an absolute disgrace that this could be happening to our Constitution. And he looked at Mike Pence, and I hope Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope so. I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All he has to do, this is from the number one, or certainly one of the top constitutional lawyers.
We don't want to learn it.
He has the absolute right to do it. We're supposed to protect our country, support our country, support our Constitution, and protect our Constitution.
No.
States want to revoke. The states got defrauded. They were given false information. They voted on it. Now they want to recertify. They want it back. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And
He doesn't have to decide.
And you are the happiest people. And I just spoke to Mike. I said, Mike, that doesn't take courage. What takes courage is to do nothing. That takes courage. And then we're stuck with a president who lost the election by a lot. And we have to live with
I'm
that
greedy.
for 4 more years. We're just not going to let that happen. We gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital for one very, very basic and simple reason: to save our democracy. We want to go back and we want to get this right, because we're going to have somebody in there that should not be in there, and our country will be destroyed, and we're not going to stand for that. If this happened to the Democrats, there'd be hell all over the country going on. There'd be hell all over the country. But just remember this: you're stronger, you're smarter, you've got more going than anybody, and they try and demean everybody having to do with us. And you're the real people. You're the people that built this nation. You're not the people that tore down our nation. Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious.
I blame Mr. Gessler.
Bring it.
No, maybe it's
I think that's President Trump's fault, actually.
Everything's Trump's fault. So why not? Let's go start to go. Okay. Okay. We're in double speed as we're trying to catch up. We take a break while you sort through your technical issues. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. They're really having technical issues.
So you may get a little repeat here.
We're just not going to let that happen. We gathered together in the heart of our nation's capital for one very, very basic and simple reason: to save our. Republicans are constantly fighting like a boxer with his hands tied behind his back. It's like a boxer. And we want to be so nice. We want to be so respectful of everybody, including bad people. And we're going to have to fight much harder. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad day for our country. Because you're sworn to uphold our Constitution. Now it is up to Congress to confront this.
Well, there's no jury here. It's just a bench trial, England DG. Meaning the court, the judge is going to decide this.
We're going to walk down.
So
Walk down anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave
they usually hire
citizens,
people to handle stuff
congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for
if it's a big enough case.
because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. We have come to demand
Maybe it'll
Congress
work. My
do
gut
the right
says, if you're
and
serious
only
about it,
count
my
the
gut says
electors
no.
who have been lawfully slated. I know
Lawfully
that everyone
slated.
here will soon be marching over to the
China.
Capitol to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time. By the way, Pennsylvania has now seen all of this. They didn't know because it was so bad. They had a vote. Now they see all this stuff. It's all come to light. Just happened that fast. And they want to recertify their votes. They want to recertify. But the only way that can happen is if Mike Pence agrees to send it back. Mike Pence has to agree to send it back.
Send it back. Send it back. Send it back. Send it back. You can't prove I was there.
And many people in Congress want to send it back. And think of what you do. Let's say you don't do it. Somebody says, well, we have to obey the Constitution, and you are. Because you're protecting our country and you're protecting the Constitution, so you are. But think of what happens. Let's say they're stiffs and they're stupid people. And they say, well, we really have no choice. Even though Pennsylvania and other states want to redo their votes, they want to see the numbers, they already have the numbers, but very quickly. And they want to redo their legislature. Because many of these votes were taken, as I said, because it wasn't approved by the legislature. You know? That in itself is, and then you have the scam. And that's all of the things that we're talking about. But think of this. If you don't do that, that means you will have a president of the United States for 4 years with his wonderful son. You will have a president who lost all of these states. Or you will have a president, to put it another way.
You have to realize that you're dealing in a completely new environment. Walking into a courtroom, their system is always set up differently. So you're sort of like working by the seat of your pants when you're trying to do it. So that's why, I think you probably do realize that. But.
They're ruthless, and it's time that somebody did something about it. And Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now. I'm not hearing good stories. Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, from the country. So, I mean, I could go on and on about this fraud that took place in every state. And all of these legislatures want this back. I don't want to do it to you because I love you and it's freezing out here. But I could just go on forever. I can tell you this. So when you hear, while there is no evidence to prove any wrongdoing, this is the most fraudulent thing anybody said. This is a criminal enterprise. This is a criminal enterprise. The Republicans have to get help. You're not going to have a Republican Party. They want to play so straight. They want to play so straight here in the United States. The Constitution doesn't allow me to send them back to the states. I'll say, yes, it does. Because the Constitution says you have to protect our country and you have to protect our Constitution.
Who gives access to techno setup? Obviously. What do I know?
When you catch somebody in a fraud, you're allowed to go by very different rules. So I hope Mike has the courage to do what he has to do. And I hope he doesn't listen to the rhinos and the stupid people that he's listening to.
Rhinos and
When
the
we won the election, this was the landslide. He said it's not American to challenge an election. This is the most corrupt election in the history, maybe in the world.
Anything live from 7 to 9, I barely watched. The only one I watched live between 7 and 9 is sometimes Robert Gouveia.
When the way they got there is illegal.
when the states that vote are given false and fraudulent information. I think one of our great achievements will be election security, because nobody until I came along.
I mean, in the past, I've watched others. In the last couple of years.
People would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, I want to thank you very much. And they go off to some other life. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't happen. And we fight.
I don't know what the point to any of this is.
If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country.
He says, fight like hell. If you don't fight like hell, you're
So
not going to have a
we're
country.
going to
They edit out different parts. You saw how they just edited right there? There's a little jump. Yeah, let's edit out the parts where he said, and when I say fight, I mean peacefully.
Democrats are hopeless.
They edit that part out.
Not even one vote.
Let's just lose all context here.
Our Republicans the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America.
I want to point this out.
I think it's already admitted that's plaintiff.
All the evidence that Trump was trying to give more security there is, to me, very relevant because it shows his mindset is not to try and have anyone commit any crimes, but protect the Capitol.
Exhibit 49, these clips from it. I'd now like, please switch back over. See if this works this time. Go to the January 6th report, which is the findings, plaintiff's exhibit 78. Finding 315. And this is page 96 of the exhibit. At 1:10 p.m. on January 6th, President Trump concluded his speech at the Ellipse. By that time, the attack on the U.S. Capitol had already begun, but it was about to get much worse.
Remember,
the president told thousands of people in attendance to march down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol. He told them to fight like hell because if they didn't, they were not going to have a country anymore. Not everyone who left the Ellipse did as the commander-in-chief ordered, but many of them did. The fighting intensified during the hours that followed. I'd like to go back to Exhibit 148, which is a compilation of tweets, and see one that we've seen quite a bit already. This is the 2:24 p.m. tweet from January 6th. Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth. And then I'd like to show, Your Honor, some additional clips from Plaintiff's Exhibit 94, which has already been.
And right beneath that, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They're
seen,
truly on the side of our country.
not
Stay
all, I don't
peaceful. I see. That's finally a little bit of a nexus that they got. Look, you got when you see a nexus, you see a little bit of a nexus. You have someone reading a tweet out loud. That's actually a little bit more of a nexus. This is so edited. This is so edited. Let's cut from that to this news here.
And I'll show another one.
Like, for all we know, that noose is literally the size like a squirrel's neck. It's like a little thing like this, a little noose hanging down. This is so stupidly edited. This is so ridiculous. That she's allowing this in is just ridiculous. Was it really? That's so funny. I just guessed. I mean, Mike Pence doesn't look, he looks like a manlet. If there's any violence, yeah, I don't like the way this is going. Sorry, but that's exactly, I can't show violence. This does look mildly violent. Yeah. Look at this stupid little montage. This is so dumb.
And now I'd
This
like
is
to
so
move
dumb.
to plaintiff's
I can't
exhibit
believe this
6.
is an actual courtroom.
Uh,
This is happening in a courtroom right now. This is happening in a courtroom. This is like the most ridiculous evidence in the world. The news top platform was about 2 feet off. I guessed that. I totally guessed that. Google pictures of it. There's a 5'3", there's a 4 lady next to it who towers over the top bar. What a joke. Oh, God. God. Now I got to see. Now I got to see that. I got to try to find that.
and I believe this will be admitted per the October 27th order. This is a very lengthy video. It's footage from the camera taken on top of the Capitol, looking down. I just have a few clips. It's nice to see because it has, I think, the timestamp. And Mr. Olson reminded me I did not move to admit Exhibit 100, which was the December 22nd Trump speech. So I would like to move to admit that.
Admitted. And then we're on D6, you said?
Correct, Your Honor.
That's also admitted.
And there's no sound here, but you can see the timestamp in the upper left. And it'll skip a few as we do the clips, but you'll see it in the timestamp. So right now, this is roughly 4 minutes after that tweet. 10 minutes.
There's your news.
20 minutes.
Oh my God.
And a
Oh
little
my
over 30
gosh.
minutes.
How short do they think Mike Pence is? They were going to kill him. There was real evidence. There's evidence even they were trying to kill him. He's trying to incite them to kill him.
And then the question
Oh my God.
I'd like to move on is what
Even had
President
a
Trump was
news.
doing during this time, besides putting out some tweets. And here again, I'll go to the January 6th report findings, page 16, Exhibit 148. Yep.
I think you said one.
Yeah, I was mistaken. It's 78, Your Honor. Finding 55. Once Trump
Okay. How much would you need to cover Farrakhan versus ADL defamation suit? I'm grabbing popcorn. Okay. Those are two entities that I detest because ADL, terrible, terrible, terrible organization run by a terrible human being, terrible human being, terrible, terrible, terrible. And Farrakhan, he really does not like the Jews. He's really, really filled with Jew hatred, spewing it all day long. So yeah, not really looking to spend hours watching those two people, rooting for them both to lose. 14th Amendment gives Congress authority to enforce insurrection clause. Congress acquitted Trump of incitement insurrection. How does Colorado have standing to address insurrection ballot disqualification at all? Isn't it a federal matter? This is what we talked about early on. It's a great question. It's a great question. They're saying because technically, you're saying this is whether the state whether the state should have the attorney general or whoever is overseeing their elections should be directed to remove it. So, but I agree with you. This definitely should be in federal court. It's creative to say that's because it's basically interpreting a state law by her as her assessment. But I think that should be the first sign that this is a woman who is desperate to keep her paws on this case.
returned to the White House, he was informed almost immediately that violence and lawlessness had broken out at the Capitol among his supporters. And page 36, finding 120.
Oh my God!
Sorry, this one's a little longer.
These
From
stupid,
the outset of the
ridiculous
violence and for several
findings.
hours that followed, people at the Capitol, people
This is so
inside
stupid.
President
This
Trump's
is
administration,
complete
elected
hearsay.
officials of both parties, members of President Trump's family,
this is a
and
sham.
Fox News commentators sympathetic to President Trump all tried to contact him to urge him to do one
Embarrassment
singular
of
thing.
justice.
One thing that all of these people immediately understood was required: instruct his supporters to stand down and disperse, to leave the Capitol. As the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates, President Trump specifically and repeatedly refused to do so for multiple hours while the mayhem ensued. Chapter 8 of this
This is
report explains in
classic
meticulous
hearsay.
detail the horrific nature of the violence taking
Classic.
place that was directed at law
Classic
enforcement officers
hearsay.
at the Capitol and put the lives of American lawmakers at risk.
Classic.
Yet, in spite of this, President Trump watched the violence on television, from a dining room adjacent to the Oval Office.
I would be
Calling
screaming
senators to urge them
objection,
to help him delay the
hearsay.
electoral count, but
Objection,
refusing to supply the
objection,
specific help
objection.
that
This is
everyone
the
knew
worst,
was
most
unequivocally
obvious
required.
form of hearsay. It
As
doesn't
this
matter
report
whether
shows,
she's
when Trump
trusted for
finally did
truth.
make such a
Just
statement at
this
4:17 p.m.
cumulative
after hours of
hearsay,
violence,
hearsay,
the
hearsay. This
statement
is like
immediately had the
seventh-hand
expected effect.
hearsay.
The rioters began to disperse immediately and leave
This is a
the
joke.
Capitol. Go to page 6.
Your Honor, if I may, I haven't stood up for a while, so I feel I need to stand up and make an objection. I don't even know where to begin on this one. How do we cross-examine? How do we examine any of this evidence that contains speculation and opinion in this? This is a finding that characterizes or exemplifies the very worst aspects of the January 6th Commission. So we object to it.
Would you like to just have a continuing objection to the January 6th report
Well-
findings, or do you want to get up and?
Some I feel very strongly about getting up, and this is sort of one of them. Your Honor.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let you make whatever objections you want.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we're going to page 6 of the findings, finding 24. President Trump had authority and responsibility to direct deployment of the National Guard in the District of Columbia, but never gave any order to deploy the National Guard on January 6th or on any other day.
Now I'm going to show
Nor did
you
he
an
instruct
hour-long
any federal
interview of
law
Nancy
enforcement
Pelosi
agency
saying what a terrible
to
human
assist.
being he is. This is so stupid.
Going to
Here's
page
AOC
40
saying she was triggered that day
of
in a
exhibit
video.
78, the findings. Going to finding 134.
In between pitching
At
us
3:13
her
p.m.,
favorite set of hair
President Trump
curlers,
sent another tweet,
curling
but
iron,
again declined to tell people to go home.
and explaining how
I'm asking
garbage
for
disposals
everyone at
work.
the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue.
This is
Thank
so
you.
stupid.
Almost everyone, including staff in the White House, also found the president's 2:38 p.m. and 3:13 p.m. tweets to be
Awful.
insufficient because they did not instruct the rioters to leave the Capitol. Evidence showed that neither of these tweets had any appreciable impact on the violent rioters, unlike the video message tweet that did not come until 4:17, finally instructing rioters to leave. Neither the 2:38 nor the 3:13 tweets made any difference. And then finally on this, Your Honor, page 100, finding 331. It was not until it was obvious that the riot would fail to stop the certification of the vote that the president finally relented and released a video statement made public.
What
at
made it
4:17
obvious at
p.m.
obvious at 4 o'clock? Why was it obvious then?
I'd like to show a Truth Social post. I don't think it's called a tweet, from 2 years later. It goes to President Trump's state of mind. This is a Truth Social post, December 3rd, 2022. I believe it's admissible under Your Honor's 1027 order. So we would move to admit plaintiff 74.
Why not? She's allowing everything else in.
Admitted.
So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and
I'd like to
deception,
admit my-
and working
my-
closely with big tech companies, the
My
DNC,
spew
and the
from 2
Democratic
months
Party,
ago.
Democrat Party, do you throw the presidential election results of 2020 out and declare the rightful winner, or do you have a new election? A massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
How does that show
Our
his
great
state of
founders
mind
did
2
not
years
want
earlier?
and would not condone
This
false
is so
and fraudulent
stupid.
elections. And Your Honor, there are some additional findings at some point that we would move into evidence from the January 6th report, but I don't want to take up people's time reading those today. But those are the ones that I did want to present.
How embarrassing that she's allowing all this garbage in.
Is that the conclusion?
Oh yeah, this
It is.
social message posting
is.
from 2 years later reveals his state of mind on January 6th.
I have nothing new to present, Your Honor, but I was able to take notes while Mr. Grimsley was talking. And I think we still need to have P49 admitted officially.
That's the.
I'm going to tell you, any judge
I don't
who,
think-
who,
we talked
who
about it
believes
later,
this
but
is
it
relevant,
wasn't
I
admitted.
question their competence to make any decision, especially something of this
And then
magnitude.
the only other exhibit that
Unbelievable.
I showed in opening that we'd like to move for admission is the first portion of P109. This is a stand back and stand by comment that Trump made. You would rule the rest of that video clip had hearsay, but that the Trump section was admissible. That's what we played, and we would move to admit that section of P109.
That's admitted, but you will, at some point, need to, put all the exhibits are gonna have to be dealt with, but you'll need to make sure that only that clip is submitted.
Yes, we will, and Your Honor, is it your preference that we revise P49 or we make a new I'm sorry, P-109, or we make a new exhibit with just the clip.
I think it provide, when you actually submit P49 at the end, just have it be what was allowed.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. That's all we have.
Okay. So since we have a few extra moments, I think that the Mr. Gessler, one of the things that you had mentioned at the beginning of the day was that there was a pending question on specific intent, your motion, which I think was largely agreed to by petitioners with some caveats.
I'm not sure if it was quite a motion, Your Honor, or more like a trial, but I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, it's clear that specific intent is going to apply to this case. Exactly how that plays out with the nuances that the petitioners want is something that I will rule on when I make my findings of facts, conclusions of law. And I will address your First Amendment arguments regarding Brandenburg at that time as well. Is there anything else we need to address before we stop for the day?
Not from petitioner's perspective, thank you.
Mercifully, no problem.
Okay, so we will start again at 8 o'clock. Does that work? And is that the plan with your witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Keeney will be our first witness at 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, and are you thinking, other than Mr. Keefe, that you will conclude tomorrow?
It depends on the gravity of cross, but I think it's possible but unlikely.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the interveners are going to be prepared to start whenever it is that the petitioners finish the case absent Mr. Keefe.
Yeah, Your Honor, we're anticipating starting Wednesday, so I guess tomorrow's a little bit of a short day, if I remember correctly, so 4
Oh,
o'clock.
Halloween, correct.
4 o'clock for
Probably
Halloween.
we'll start tomorrow afternoon if it's done that early, but we'll be prepared Wednesday morning.
Okay, so we will end at the latest on 4 tomorrow. If we finish earlier, then we'll still just go to Wednesday morning, at which point we'll either be finishing petitioner's case or we'll be prepared to start.
And Your Honor, would it be possible to get a time update, maybe tomorrow morning, no rush on that?
I have one right now. As we calculated, the petitioners have used 4 hours and 34 minutes, and the interveners have used 1 hour and 9 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And I just remind the parties to tell Colin who is going to be live tomorrow, so that security knows. That we will, we are done for the day.
All right. Well, there you go. Okay. Let's jump over here. Thank you for your support, DG. I appreciate it. Separation of powers. DGT had no power there. All he could do and did was offer assistance to the relevant authority, which was Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser. Nancy Pelosi, as head Speaker of the House at the time, was in charge of overseeing security of the Capitol Police, and Muriel Bowser was the mayor of DC Metro Police, both of whom rejected offers by Donald Trump to allow the National Guard in to help. Similarly, Pelosi couldn't send CP to the White House. Jurisdiction in DC is complicated. So it was offer assistance to relevant authority, the architect who reports to the speaker. Similar, correct. Everything that England AG is saying here, to my knowledge, is correct. Similarly, Pelosi couldn't send CP to the White House. Yep, wouldn't make any sense. Jurisdiction in DC is complicated. Everyone thinks he's the president. He can do whatever he wants. It's just not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. But yeah. Anyway. So there you go. That is I will be back here, God willing, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Mountain. 10 a.m. Eastern. I expect to be back here. I plan on doing a show tonight. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you have not yet done so. I really appreciate it. These trials are the only time that I actually seem to have any sort of growth at all. So, and they are very exhausting. So if you could hit like and subscribe, I would be Much obliged. I will try to have a show tonight at 10 o'clock. We're going to see if what I can come up with real quick, grab some food, do my thing, and see you. Hopefully see you tonight. Likely see you tonight. Not sure, but very good chance. And follow me on Locals, goodlogic.locals.com to find out when I'm starting everywhere. Everywhere. That's my show. I'll see you guys later. Take care. And as always, my friends, be happy and eat some bugs. Godspeed.